And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
Attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. Of course, it's Monday morning with the Finest Unfiltered. Hope you had an awesome weekend. Knicks are kicking ass. So if you're a real New Yorker, you love the Knicks, it's a good time to be a Knicks fan. So no surprise. I mean, this team has been nothing but hard. But with that being said, Knicks fans have been pretty wild. A female police officer in the NYPD got punched in the face. So it's have a good time. But at the same time, the NYPD has to maintain control. So good morning, everybody. Good morning to the chat, friends, listeners. We appreciate it. Hope you had an awesome weekend and back at it with the Finest Unfiltered. So, John, Marlon, good morning. Knicks fans, get your Calci bets in, of course. And so, John, what do you think, brother? Knicks going to make a complete sweep or what?
Yeah, I mean, it's shaping up that way. It's definitely, it took first two games in San Antonio. I mean, it was huge. It was a big game on Friday. And now they're coming back to the Garden up 2-0. And, I was never alive for a situation like this for the Knicks to be in. So, I mean, I'm super excited. I've been a diehard Knicks fan my whole life. Michael Jordan made me cry several times. I've been disappointed a lot of different years. So it's to me, it's big, and I feel the buzz, and I see what's happening. Knicks fans are notorious. They've always been. I think a lot of the stuff is lighthearted. I think a lot of the gatherings are lighthearted. A lot of kids shooting videos, shooting content. They're joking around. They're messing around. But, like anything with mass gatherings, you get some idiots. You know what I mean? And so we've had a lot of arrests over the last two games. And the games in front of Madison Square Garden, you've had a lot of arrests. NYPD was going to cancel the Madison Square Garden watch party, which is the main watch party outside of the Garden. And they went ahead and they allowed it. And then for game two, they had over 26 arrests. Like Eric said, we've had a cop injured. And now game three is coming. Watch party again's canceled. Now the watch party is actually canceled. And we have Trump coming in the building for Madison Square Garden. I know a lot of Knicks fans are upset about that. I know it's a heavy lift on the New York City Police Department because it adds in a whole new layer of security issues, as well as it adds in a lot of screening issues for the fans. There's all new types of screening that needs to be done as Trump's coming into the building for his security for the game. So there's a lot of buzz around that. And I just think, I think what you're going to see is the NYPD do a great job security wise. I think this is going to be like another Israeli Day parade where you're going to see this is going to be the largest deployment of NYPD officers ever for an event at Madison Square Garden. And all of it's going to contradict everything that Zohran Mamdani campaigned on. It's going to contradict everything that he's been saying as far as that he wants to decouple the department's counterterrorism resources from First Amendment activities. This sporting event is a First Amendment activity. I think you're going to see counterterrorism officers out in force. There's going to be some you're going to see, some you aren't going to see, as well as they're going to have strategic response group ready to go. Full gear. They're going to be everywhere again. So I think, when it comes to public safety, I think for when the show is on, when the lights are on, nobody does it better than Madison Square Garden. Nobody does it better than the NYPD. So, yeah. What's up, Marlon? What are you thinking?
Yo, good morning, everyone. Morning chat. Hope everyone had a great weekend. I see you guys already in there. Eddie West, Hood Mayor. Amazing. We got in there. Sleepy Joe. I told you so back when. Haven't seen you in a while on here. Yeah, guys. I'm kind of disappointed that I thought we were going to have like a closer match between the Knicks and the Spurs, but the Spurs look like they totally dropped the ball a couple times, And I'm a recovering Knicks fan. The Knicks have broken my heart too many times from the 90s. Yeah, like I hated. I hated that the Carmelo Anthony period ran for as long as it did, and I totally also hated when the Knicks, kind of sidelined Lynn, because I actually thought they should have built around him as a point guard, So, but this team, as we said before, has a lot of heart, so it's kind of hard to hate on them, They kind of they kind of have that underdog, hard working spirit that the '90s Knicks had, So it's kind of hard to hate on them. So, but this is it's gonna be interesting, because we haven't won a championship since the 1970s. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the crowd is gonna react to that. And apparently the NYPD also thinks so, with the amount of cops they're bringing on the detail. But anyway, we have a lot to talk about today, and I'm ready to get things started.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about this? Like, I'm so excited too. Like, Knicks are, they're in the championship, they're winning. It looks like there might even be a full sweep going on here. I mean, I've always been a Knicks fan. I met Walt Frazier one time in person. When I was a kid, I was huge into basketball, and I remember I met Walt Frazier, and he was at a bank somewhere doing some type of signing in Staten Island. I forget. I think it was. I don't remember what bank it was, but I went home. I was there by accident. I was a kid. I went home and I got my basketball and I had him sign it, and super cool. I mean, so I was always a big fan of Walt Frazier, big fan of the Knicks. But I think what's going on right now with this watch party, excuse me, and some of the mayhem that has taken place there, it's not about the Knicks right now. This is about New York City and the NYPD. And what it tells me is that for the leadership in the NYPD, it's become normalized, and it's become kind of routine and even almost a good opportunity for the NYPD to fall back on, to blame the cops when assaults are up. When there's an uptick in felonies, we could just blame the cops for getting assaulted, because we got a female police officer that was punched in the face. We have cops getting punched in the face often. I mean, that's like the new thing.
Is that me?
Oh, cop got punched in the face. What's that?
Oh no, you froze up, dude.
Oh, I froze?
Yeah, you froze.
Oh, sorry. So I don't know what point I was up to. But anyway, I think it's become normalized where female police officer got punched in the face. Police officers get punched in the face all the time. It's getting normalized. The leadership does nothing about it. The union does nothing about it other than put out a statement. Great. But what it tells me is there's a bigger picture here, is that the NYPD leadership is actually capable of doing police work when they want to. When they want to, such as the past Israeli Day Parade. The presence was there. The manpower was there. Everything was set in place properly where it needed to be when they want to. But it's almost like maybe they want cops to get punched in the face because they can fall back on it when there's an uptick in felonies or uptick in index crimes. Oh, well, cops are getting assaulted. That's why there's uptick in crime. Because when the NYPD, and I mean the leadership, wants action, they want a good presence taking place, they do it. And we see how they cherry pick. And that's why this is not really about the Knicks. It's a bigger thing, and this is about the NYPD in New York City. It's the NYPD's ability, or lack thereof, to handle a crowd and take control when they choose to.
Well, no, I think that's a good point, and I think that's a lot of what we're talking about. Is like they could be the police when they want to be the police, but they're usually not the police. And so first two games, they weren't the police. We had the guy who's the chief with the snowball incident. Like, nah, guys, just go have fun. Bodette, Timmy Bodette. Just go have fun, guys. Don't worry. You just pelted my officers in the face and abused them. Don't worry about it. Keep doing what you're doing. And he's the guy in charge of these events. And honestly, I think he's the exact wrong person. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm just saying all I see is New York City getting taken over, the streets getting taken over, and him just like with this new post 2020 style of policing insanity. Mass protests where we're doing this dialogue policing. And honestly, if we're going to go to dialogue policing, he's not too great at dialogue. So, I mean, like he's not good at showing you force. He's not good at deploying. resources. He's not good at quelling the crowds and like keeping them in control. And he's not good at dialogue. So like, what do we just say? Hey, Timmy, just go stand out there and while they riot, we'll make videos about you and make fun of you. Like that's what it is. Hey, Timmy, just do this. We're not going to give you the right amount of resources that you're going to need, but don't worry, you'll be all right. Just get through it. Just let them do what they want. And that's kind of what's happening. And I'll be honest, I'm shocked no one's been killed. I was shocked, like someone falling off one of these rafters that they're hanging from, or the roofs that they're hanging off of, or the light poles that they're climbing up on. And it really is funny to watch the whole thing. Eric Adams, he used to say, his famous quote was, "Public safety is the key to prosperity." Right? That was his quote. Now, Zohran Mamdani, like I said, and I've said for a long time, like literally every single policy that you guys were all up in arms about, he bit off of Eric Adams' first campaign. And you guys just didn't hear it. Department of Community Safety was him. Defund the police was him. It all stemmed from Eric Adams. There was nothing new about Mamdani that I hadn't heard from every other Democrat, including the last Democrat mayor, who was Eric Adams. And that was the campaign that Mamdani ran. It was just a better campaign than Adams' original campaign. So Mamdani, what his new words are is, public safety is the prerequisite for the affordability agenda. So in order for him to make things more affordable. So we have this huge event, right? Huge event taking place tonight at Madison Square Garden. It's going to be just as big, if not bigger, than the Israeli Day Parade. As far as like security concerns, counterterrorism concerns, the eyes of the entire world are going to be on New York City tonight. I mean, it's true most nights, but especially tonight. Especially tonight. Game 3, Knicks up 2-0. Everybody's going to be watching this game. And what do we get yesterday evening in Penn Station, right under Madison Square Garden, 33rd and 7th? We get a emotionally disturbed person stabs 5 people in the train station below. So if public safety is the prerequisite to prosperity, or public safety is the prerequisite to the affordability agenda, I guess we're not getting either. Because when it's on a day-to-day event, Sunday in the city, I mean, a lot of people come in on Sundays. They go to shows, they go to events, they go to restaurants that they want to do, and they take the train then. And they spend a whole lot of money in tax money to fund a lot of police officers, both in the MTA and the Port Authority and in the NYPD, to be down there, get overtime out of transit. And yet there was a madman who was able to take out a knife and stab 5 people, one of them seriously. So I don't know where that victim stands now. The emotionally disturbed person was apprehended and put into custody, but it just shows a highlight and failure of the public safety apparatus in the day-to-day. Now, will that translate to tonight? I don't believe so.
Well, the thing is, the NYPD takes under Tisch takes policing seriously when the media spotlight is there. So because they know the media spotlight is going to be there after the Knicks, due to the high profile nature of tonight's game, especially with Trump attending. And I don't know why Trump is attending, to be honest with you, because it's New York City. We all know that most of those people in there are going to be booing him as soon as the cameras point towards Trump. So I don't even know why he's appearing to such an unfriendly audience. But NYPD takes the security, public safety seriously now when the media spotlight's there. You saw that with Tisch like 2 weeks ago with the Israeli Day Parade, or rather a week and a half now. But because the nature of it being such a high profile event, I think just to disagree with you, John, that having Timmy there, it really doesn't matter, because he's doing what he's told from up above, and I think the reason why there was no action for the snowball fight, I think, is because he was ordered. He was following orders from above. And in this case, he's going to be following orders from above, and you're going to see the exact police response to anything that happens there, the exact police response that 1PP wants. Yeah. So if 1PP actually wants to be the police, Timmy is going to, be, do what he has to do. And if you don't want them, and if 1PP wants them to back off, which they don't because it's a high profile event, you get that reaction too. I think what you see with these guys now is exactly what 1PP wants. Something happens, they're probably gonna make a phone call, or they're probably gonna be already given a phone call from above and told what to do. So.
Well, listen, Timmy Boudet looks like he's lacking a little testosterone to me. Let's be honest. So I think not only are they telling him what to do, they found the right guy to be soft at an event like this. Honestly, I mean, he doesn't. I look at him; he doesn't exactly exuberate like testosterone to me. Let's be honest. He's kind of a little soft spoken to be at some of these events. I get it. We don't need someone who's too aggressive, but we need someone that has good balance. And I think they found the right guy for these events. And I think Timmy really showed that at the snowball incident. So, with that being said, listen, this is what 2026 looks like. The Knicks, are undefeated in the championship. Trump is coming to town. Female cop gets punched in the face. And the NYPD cherry picks how they respond to different incidents. That's why I said what the bigger picture is here is that the NYPD, the leadership, is capable of putting manpower in place and putting the right elements in place to actually have public safety paramount at a serious event or at a large-scale event. And that's one thing the NYPD was always, I would say, the GOAT of anything is being the premier, being the GOAT at large-scale events. That's something that you learn early on in your career, even as a rookie police officer, is how to control crowds, how to move people without touching them. There is an art to it, and there's no one better than it at the NYPD. And what we've seen at the past couple of years is just complete theater and politics over policing. But when the NYPD leadership decides that it's necessary to actually put the right elements in place and to have public safety paramount for an event, the job gets done. That's the sad part. That's the bigger picture here. A female police officer gets punched in the face. That's not why they're going to have more security, because this is just politics over policing, because it's the Knicks, because it's all eyes are on it right now. That's really what it's about. They could care less a female police officer got punched in the face. That might be something to elevate this and might use that to catapult this event, but I don't think they care, because police officers getting punched in the face quite often, and no one's doing anything about it. I saw a statement out by the PBA. Oh, another statement, another response to a courtroom. It's not enough. You need to pound your feet hard. You need to tell the NYPD leadership, why do we have such a large presence at certain events? Why are we not always supporting our cops so they don't get punched in the face? Why are we not doing that on a constant basis? And that's really what the big picture is here. Here's the PBA statement right here. Now, when it comes to this female police officer getting punched in the face, as I said before, I think there is a part of the NYPD leadership that doesn't necessarily want that to change. Because what do we hear recently? When assaults or any type of felony, if there's an uptick, the cops get blamed for it. Oh, well, the reason why there's an uptick in felony assaults is because cops are getting assaulted. That's okay, though. That's fine. And that's what we see. They blame the cops. John, what are your thoughts on that, man? What do you think about this PBA statement? Here's another statement back in courtrooms, but to me, it's just white noise.
Oh, it absolutely falls short. And I'm not even going to say my words. I'll say the words of what I've been hearing from a lot of people. So PBA President Patrick Henry puts out this statement. It says, a victory celebration shouldn't end with blood pouring down a police officer's face. Our sister was just doing her job, trying to keep everyone safe in the pandemonium following the Knicks Game 2 win, when an individual jumped over a barrier and punched her in the face, hard enough to leave a bloody gash. The same person also bit another cop after being placed under arrest. Thankfully, our sister is recovering, but this is completely unacceptable and cannot be tolerated. We will be in court to make sure this individual faces the consequences she deserves. So while he's absolutely correct about the individual, where his statement falls short and where officers of all ranks feel that your statement falls short, Pat, is that you put no onus on the leadership whatsoever to actually put out a proper deployment, a proper protest posture. Because whether you would like to admit it or not, what happens after a Knicks game is a First Amendment activity, which is similar to a protest. You know, it's people expressing themselves, their joyous behavior. And now, I don't know, man. I lived in New York City my entire life, dude. I lived there for 43 years. 43 years. I've had Knicks and Rangers in the playoffs together, hype around all of it. I've seen countless Yankee victories, countless Yankee parades I've been at. And all during those reported crime anyway, was much higher than it is now. But I've been at all these events, and I told you so. I was dumb when I was a kid. I was an idiot. I hung out with all the idiots in the street. And there was one thing. When the cops showed up or the cops told us to do something, we listened. Because if we didn't, we ended up in jail. And I don't know, man. Like, crime supposedly at historic lows, but I don't think we've ever had an issue where cops were getting beat up at Yankee parades and assaulted at Yankee parades. And we had constant takeovers of Madison Square Garden. So, like, the question's got to be, okay, crime's down, but when did we stop learning how to police mass protests, mass gatherings? When did we stop learning how to move people? And the answer is really simple. It was in 2020. It was in 2020 where we said that these college kids that went to legal, that have no idea about policing, maybe watch Blue Bloods or something, and wanted to be a cop, but nah, not really. I'm just going to sign up for the NYPD and be an attorney for them because I'm probably not going to do good in an outside law firm. Probably not going to be able to make my own way in the world. So I'm going to get one of my friends in the community to get me into the NYPD, and I'm going to stand out there, pretend like I'm a cop when I'm not, and I'm going to be barking orders at 30-year chiefs when I don't have any experience on these streets because I didn't even grow up in New York City. And when we handed over autonomy and police authority to legal in 2020, that's when we stopped being able to police mass gatherings. It's very simple to me. And then we put it on paper, and Eric Adams and Ed Caban signed it into law with the protest settlement agreement, where we took away police officers' arrest authority. Because according to that protest settlement agreement, and according to Jessica Tisch, that we don't need to change our protest posture because, terrorist attack happened at a protest, didn't necessarily have to happen there. Because of that, we allow all of this to happen. And it's a direct result of our posture. And our posture is this. We've emasculated the NYPD. You need Chief Timmy Bodette running around with his megaphone because he has to be able to bark orders at you to tell you when you could arrest somebody. So, I mean, it stated clearly, I read it last Friday for you, all of the things that police officers, detectives, sergeants, and lieutenants cannot make an arrest until they get authorization from a captain on. And it's basically everything that would occur outside of a Knicks game when fans are celebrating en masse. Disorderly conduct, OGA, not following orders, criminal mischief, anything you could think of, unlawful assembly, anything you could think of that you would think individual officers, or at least a sergeant, should be able to say, he's under, put him under, put them under. No. Instead, they have to get with a captain, and the captain will tell them. And then the captain's going to sit there and waver on his decision and ultimately lean on legal himself. So we've emasculated our stance and our posture. And this is an absolute result of it. And Hendry, I haven't heard say a word about the protest settlement agreement. I know there were a few unions that didn't sign on to it, and I believe Hendry did not sign on to it, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory hasn't failed me. So I'll give him kudos for that part, for not signing it, but he hasn't said a word about it. And that cop getting punched in the face is a result of that posture. There's not even a question. It's not even a question. If you put the right people out there and you put the proper amount of deployment and you have no tolerance around certain acts in these, that never happens. And that happens as a result of NYPD leadership trying to placate to City Hall's progressive agenda.
Screen froze for a second there. Yeah. I agree. Well, first, before I go on, the reason why I said that about Timmy Baudet, Chief Baudet, I see some of you guys comments in the chat. Reason I said that is because I keep in mind we've said before how like a lot of the boots on the ground have lost autonomy, and they really, how much decision making power do they actually have anymore, right? But I also said it because let's keep in mind that Timmy was also he nearly got roped into that mess with Phil Banks back in 2014 to 2016, that time frame. And this is probably, I'm surprised he was even moved up to chief, but whatever, right? Let's keep in mind that he was questioned by the feds regarding all of this,
Jeremy Diamonds.
I think because we all, the media tends to have like a short memory, and a lot of things that get brought up in the past get memory hold real quickly and quickly forgotten about. So I think in the past he made poor choices, just taking orders from rank above him, and I think that's my opinion on him, comes from that when I see that. But anyway, I think the NYPD now is, I question whether a lot of the moves they've made, and I've said this before, are not from they're not really progressive, but it's because of the manpower. But they just veil it as progressive because that's how they fool everybody into going along with it, especially the councilman. I think a lot of it is because they don't have the manpower, and they don't want to tell us how badly things are. And later on, when we go on, I will bring up we'll talk about city council and impact, and why I think those two are part of the same conversation, and what Tish is doing now with the precision policing zones, whatever she calls it, which is really impact by another name. But I think the elephant in the room here is that the job is short of manpower, and trying to finagle that lack of manpower, in multiple units. And the whole progressive stuff is just a cover to fool us into thinking, and to fool us into accepting it, and to fool especially a left-leaning city into accepting diminished police services.
That's a great point, right? I think manpower is actually one of the biggest issues that's affecting their decisions, and that's why I say it's politics over policing. Because we'll never hear Jessica Tisch admit that some of the failures have been because their manpower is completely diminished. I mean, I think attrition is the canary when we talk about the NYPD. Now, I also heard a huge rumor that, in regards, just to talk about manpower, I have a very credible source that says there will be no special victims on any tour today, and that they're all going to be assigned to the Knicks detail. So I'm talking about, I have notes here, 129 investigators, 3 captains, all the lieutenants and the sergeants will be assigned to Madison Square Garden. That's the numbers I have. Good rumor, good credible source that these special victims cops will be assigned to MSG, just to give you an idea. So no one will be working. This is just a rumor, of course, but I tell you what, it's a pretty good source that no one will be assigned working special victims cases today. They'll all be assigned to MSG. So just to put that into perspective, that really shows you where manpower is. So if I'm sure, and if anybody, reach out to me. Of course, we always keep our sources confidential, unlike some others. But if you have any information about any other units out there that are not doing their primary job today and they're going to be assigned to MSG, I mean, that's a huge problem. Obviously, I understand if you have to take some bits and pieces to support a huge event or something that's kind of out of the ordinary, but this has become normal routine police work right now for the NYPD. I often speak to cops who tell me that there are several units, depending on what event it is, that are completely shut down for the day and utilized for an event because it's just the attrition right now, as I said before, is the canary in the NYPD. And the numbers are, if we heard the numbers right now, I think they would be scary of what the numbers actually are. If anyone thinks they're actually 35,000, well, you need to do a better job at math. I mean, I think it was close to 35,000. It was under 35,000 when I left. I retired September of 2022. And I don't think those numbers were accurate then. And so we know the numbers, I mean, the mass exodus that we've seen in these past almost 4 years, the numbers are astronomical. I think it's scary out there of what the cops are working with right now. And so the reality is when we talk about a cop getting punched in the face, manpower is definitely an issue, but it's the leadership and it's the way they're moving the NYPD. The NYPD doesn't have control anymore. And that was one thing. I mean, the NYPD was the best at, right? It was the GOAT at large scale events, moving people, the art of being able to control crowds. And that was something that was always impressive. People always came to the NYPD to see how we do things. I remember one time, I think it was it was pretty much a rookie. And I think there was a couple of, John, I don't know if you remember, but they had a bunch of police officers come from Japan. And I think they came to the police academy. They came to different precincts and tried to see what the NYPD does, how they control crowds, things like that. I mean, who's coming to the NYPD? Now the NYPD is going to Columbus, Ohio to get advice on how to handle situations. Think about that. The NYPD, the big brother, is going to the little brother to see how you do things. It's just complete insanity. And, for instance, talking about the dialogue unit, but there was a time everyone came to the NYPD to see how the NYPD does everything. The NYPD was the premier in policing, but no longer because the NYPD has been emasculated, and the NYPD is trying to outsource and find police departments that are, in these smart cities that are using this hands-off approach because they're all about defund the police. And that's where we're headed to. But the reality is, if the NYPD leadership wants to take control, they can. We have people in place that are cops that are now chiefs, such as Timmy Boudet, who came up in the era of intrusive police work, and they know how to do it. I'm not saying he's good at it, but he knows how to do it. If he wants to get it done, he can do it. But of course, Marlon, as you said before, it's really important to get promoted. Here's a guy, I think Timmy Boudet, it took him about 10 years to get chief compared to some of his counterparts that were promoted by rocket fuel. So he'll do whatever it takes to get promoted because getting promoted is more important, Marlon. You know that, right? Getting promoted is far more important. Whatever skeletons he has in the closet must be pretty damn important because getting promoted is the most important thing. That it's someone told me promotion. I forgot. Someone told me promotion or devotion. And promotion is number one. John, what are your thoughts, brother?
No, I was like Marlon kind of threw me off because he brought up that scandal and just not to take this conversation off track at all, but the other half of that Borough Park connection, Jonah, I can't think of his name right now off the top of my head. It was Jeremy Reichberg, aka Jeremy Diamonds, and then it was Jonah. I can't think of the other guy's name, but he winds up becoming Floyd Mayweather's money manager. Floyd Mayweather's suing that dude for $175 million right now because it was basically a fraud scheme. The dude was defrauding him. So he was able to defraud de Blasio. He was able to defraud a lot of people in the New York City Police Department. And then he somehow gets his hands around Mayweather's money. And now Mayweather's suing him for $175 million. So he just threw me off when he was saying that. But look, I agree on the point 100% that manpower is not what it is. And we talk about that often here, right? And when we talk about properly staffing precincts, that is the number one. That's the number one barometer right there. Like, oh, you got no cops on patrol? Okay, why? because you have no cops. That's why it's that simple, you know. But again, like I said, when they want to be the police, they're the police. But 24/7, 365, when the cameras aren't on, when the spotlights aren't on, there is you don't see any cops. And you know, that's a result of what happened yesterday evening in Penn Station, right? No cops around. No cops around, hundreds of $millions being spent on public safety apparatus. Actually, excuse me, billions of dollars are being spent a year on this public safety apparatus, including the mentally ill industrial complex and the homeless industrial complex. And none of that money is helping stop any of this because it's all literally going out and being lit on fire. We'll get into that a little later. But, you know, forget your special victims, Eric. The entire detective bureau, with the exception of homicide squads, precinct detective squads, and a few other units, small units, they're all being deployed to Madison Square Garden tonight. So someone said here that the Michael Jackson event was the biggest event at Madison Square Garden. I'm saying it right now. This is going to be the biggest event in Madison Square Garden history. This is going to be the largest deployment of NYPD officers ever in Madison Square Garden history. And I don't even think there's going to be a close second to this. The amount of manpower that's going to be needed to pull this off tonight is going to be insane. One, just to get Trump into town and get him through the streets of New York City. Then the security in and around the building is going to be next level. He presents whole new security dangers, whole new security threats. So, you know, we did a thumbnail around will Knicks fans riot? I mean, they always they celebrate, they get a little rowdy. Some of them, we get bad actors that kind of there's small little riot pockets of rioting happening in there. 100%. We see now with a poor female cop get punched in the face. But I think overall tonight, you're not going to see any of that. I just, you know, there's going to be celebrations around the city. People are going to be going nuts. There's going to be watch parties everywhere. I'm like, I think the whole country is going to be a watch party. So all eyes are going to be on the Garden. So I totally agree with you. It would be, if there wasn't this media spotlight, it would just be more of the same. Game 1, game 2, it would be more of, you know, NYPD, or let them get it out. Let them do what they got to do. Okay, guys, have fun. Don't worry about it. Throw snowballs at my offices. Don't worry about it. I agree with you there, but I think tonight they're going to pull out all the stops, man. I think, you know, again, I don't even think it's going to be a close second. I think this is going to be the largest event ever in the world's most famous arena. And I'm sticking to it because, you know, the level is high right now. The level of security needed is high. I mean, especially with Trump there, man. I mean, how many assassination attempts have we had on Trump? You're bringing him into a very hard city to secure. A lot of different factors, a lot of people, very dense. I mean, you know, if the NYPD isn't in conjunction with the Secret Service and many other federal units worried about an assassination attempt on President Trump, I would be shocked, because I think, of course they are. I mean, everybody is. You know, I don't care if you like the guy, if you don't like the guy. Doesn't matter to me. I mean, he's the president of the United States. He's coming into Madison Square Garden. Me personally, I don't care presidents I love, and I voted for President Trump 3 times, you know. But when he would come into the city, I'm like, oh man, here we go. And any president that comes in, it's a huge level of security, huge inconvenience to everybody, the residents. In this case, going to be the residents, the fans, the businesses. It's going to be a lot of stuff shut down tonight. A lot of streets shut down that aren't traditionally shut down for Knicks games. But yeah. And you know, those things that you've pointed out, Eric, like the special victims, there's going to be a lot of other units that New York City taxpayers pay for tonight that aren't going to be able to do that because of the manpower that's going to be required to run this. And that's just going to show the lack of manpower in the NYPD. You know, I'm still laughing about that city council hearing where they said, oh, we can't share the numbers with you because it's a public safety threat and it's a safety issue. And I'm like, well, it wouldn't be a safety issue if you were properly staffed. You would have no problem sharing those numbers. You would probably say them. The reason you're not sharing them is because those numbers are a threat to safety. And you're more concerned with the media spin on that than you are about correcting the problem. And that's the problem.
Yeah, there's actually a press conference going live right now from 1PP about the security at the MSG. But I actually think, regardless of Trump being there or not, I think there was going to be a large presence there because I do think they're worried about any sort of celebrations going out of hand, and rightfully they should, because in the last couple of years there have been apparently that riotous behavior that follows like soccer championships in Europe seems to have migrated across the pond and be a thing in America these days, you know. Because let's look back on the the Eagles championship in 2025, right? There was 2 shootings, 1 stabbing, and 31 disorderly conduct citations at that event, right? Then let's look at October 2024. This is when the Dodgers won the World Series. There were fireworks and cars lit on fire and rioting in downtown LA. So I think rightfully, they should be worried about that sort of behavior coming to New York City. Especially since as John brought up, the female officer that was punched in the face, a couple of days ago, right? So apparently, one of the revelers jumped the barrier, and tried to enter, and she was called back by the cop. And when she approached the cop, she punched the cop in the face, and resisted. So I think the job is rightfully right to be worried about that sort of behavior coming here, because we've talked before about I've said that I think the Western world has a problem with nihilistic young men who are nihilistic, young men who don't feel they have a purpose in life anymore. And I think these young men use events like this to, get their rocks off, right? And you see that same behavior is what happened during the snowball fight, right? Because we talked about how, like, to us it's kind of loser behavior, because I don't think our generation would have been doing that back in the day. You're gonna go all the way to Manhattan to have a snowball fight with a bunch of other dudes, Yeah, and that's fun to you, So,
you know what we would say about that. Yeah.
yeah, it's clearly a generational divide here with the youth,
Yeah.
But that nihilistic youth problem is what you see reflected in like sporting events, like at the celebration of sporting events like this. They use it to, get their rocks off. That's their thing now, apparently.
Marlon, you didn't take a subway with your buddies to go have a subway fight?
No, I didn't. Not to go join a sausage fest.
Yeah, there's
Yo, what's up? Speaking of that, what's up with Petri's haircut, dude? You see this? Like, what is that?
He's punk.
What is that thing?
I don't know, man.
Dude, shave your head. Well, join the club.
He's in a band, bro.
Yeah,
join the club.
Be in a band.
Listen, I always said it. If I start losing follicles, I'm going bald, man.
Yeah.
You have to know. There's a point of like. There's a point of like, no, you can't save it. Just shave the whole thing. You got to know when that time is.
Shouldn't like that part be in the front, not the back, like hanging down the back? Like, what's up with that?
Yeah, dude. I don't know. Like I said, your hair is holding on to a cliff. It's time to let go. Just make the leap, make the jump. But I want to push back on a comment here. One of our good friends and listeners who's always here, Boston Bob, 0007. What's up, brother? Says there is no way Trump should be in New York tonight. I think that's a little extreme, honestly. Like, how can we say that, the president, the Knicks, I mean, this is a big deal. The New York Knicks is the most iconic. New York is the most iconic city in the entire world. People are diehard Knicks fans who are not even New Yorkers. The Knicks haven't been in the championship since the 70s. People people want to get behind this. There's a lot more meaning than just sports behind this. It's symbolic, right? You talk about 9/11, all the stuff that's happened to New York, and The Knicks finally earned the championship, and they actually look like they're going to win. I mean, are we actually going to say, Trump, you can't come, you shouldn't come to New York City because the NYPD can't handle it, because people want to act out? I mean, we're going to put politics over everyday life. To me, that seems a little extreme. I mean, the bottom line is whether it's Trump, it's Barack Obama, if it's Biden, if it's Bush, if it's any president that's coming to New York, there has to be a mass security operation put in place. And that's something, and that's a good point. That's why I'm glad you brought that up, Boston Bob. He shouldn't be here. That's something the NYPD's always dealt with. When, as John was saying before, when a president would come to town, we would have what was called POTUS, right? POTUS detail, President of the United States. And everything would be put in place, and the NYPD was used to it. And at the same time, there was, when Barack Obama would come to New York a lot, there was other big events at the same time, and the NYPD was able to balance the scale and handle the POTUS detail, and at the same time handle a Rockefeller detail or some other big detail going at the same time. But it was a different NYPD, and that's why people, you're not saying that. I mean, to say that Trump shouldn't come into town because the Knicks are in championship, I think that's ridiculous, honestly. And it just shows you that we have no faith in the NYPD saying that. And the NYPD can handle it if they want to. If they want to, even with low manpower, they know how to put the pieces in place to hold on for a night. And I just think that seems a little extreme, that to say that Trump shouldn't come in tonight. I really do.
Yeah, I'm with you, bro. Like I said, as from like a personal standpoint of being a cop, it always annoyed the crap out of me. But from a national standpoint, could you imagine telling the president, or even an international standpoint, you can't come into New York City because we can't handle you? Like, no, you're supposed to be the municipal police force in the entire world. Like, you're supposed to be the cream of the crop. What do you mean you can't handle the president coming in? I was, he wants to go to dinner here. I was like, come on, man. What that, like it's annoying. It's a lot of work for the NYPD. It's a lot of added stress on there. But how big's our budget? How many cops do we supposedly have? Shouldn't be that big of a lift. So I'm with you on that, Eric. I totally agree on that aspect of it. Mondani just announced the watch party is going to be 5,000 strong in Bryant Park. So we're going to have a huge detail at Bryant Park tonight, So I guess a lot of you Detective Bureau members that are getting ready for the day, going to go in a little late today, or, switch your tour and you're going to get out there. Some of you are going to be headed over to Bryant Park, so you'll get to watch the game. But I think overall, more than the strain on what's going to occur on 34th Street and Madison Square Garden, what's going to occur throughout Manhattan, is the real strain that this puts on the outer boroughs. And I think that's what was going to get ignored here. I personally believe that, it's fine. You want to encrypt all the radios. That's fine. But I think those recordings should be made available within 24 hours to the press, because I think you're going to hear a lot of 911 calls that are going to take a very long time to respond to. I think you're going to see that response times throughout the city are going to be up tonight because of the strain that this puts on. And that's going to, again, fall back to manpower. So, we're going to be told, don't worry about it. Let's, everything's fine. We got this under control. Why don't we go to the press conference? Listen to what's being said about this. This is Jessica Tisch and Secret Service, and LePetri and his haircut, his reverse wave, I'll call it.
Good morning, everyone. Tonight is Game 3 of the NBA Finals, and it is an extraordinary moment for the Knicks and for fans across the 5 boroughs, a chance to celebrate this team and this run with the energy that only New York can bring. But tonight will also bring a major presidential visit to Madison Square Garden. As you know by now, because of that visit, and in coordination with the United States Secret Service, there will unfortunately be no watch party outside of Madison Square Garden for Game 3 of the Finals, and no access to the immediate vicinity of MSG without an authorized reason to be there. However, the mayor will be hosting a watch party nearby at Bryant Park, and MSG will be hosting 2 watch parties, one at Woolman Rink in Central Park and one at Brooklyn Bowl. We do expect watch parties to resume outside of the Garden for Game 4. Here is some information about what to expect security-wise for tonight's game. Tonight, in the area around Madison Square Garden, the NYPD will establish a security perimeter that runs from West 30th Street to West 35th Street, between 6th Avenue and 8th Avenue. Within the security area, 7th Avenue and 8th Avenues will be closed to vehicular traffic and general pedestrian traffic beginning at 4 p.m. Starting at 4 p.m., no one will be allowed inside the secured area unless they have a ticket to the game, a train ticket, they are going to a business inside the area, they have credentials, or they have some other authorized reason to be there. Everyone entering the secure area will be screened by the New York City Police Department. If you have reason to be in the secure area, you can enter at one of 5 designated entry points where that screening will occur. Those entry points will be located on the west side of 6th Avenue at West 32nd Street, the west side of 6th Avenue at West 33rd Street, the northeast corner of West 29th Street and 7th Avenue, the northeast corner of West 30th Street and 8th Avenue, and the southeast corner of West 34th Street and 8th Avenue. Please remember that certain items will not be permitted inside the secure area, including backpacks, bags, or alcohol. The only exception will be for travelers entering Penn Station who will be allowed to carry bags needed for travel. Businesses inside of the perimeter, including bars and restaurants between 6th and 7th Avenues, and those between 7th and 8th Avenues will be allowed to operate with strict capacity limits. If you plan to frequent one of these locations, you will need to be screened at a security checkpoint. When you leave, you will not be allowed onto 7th Avenue or 8th Avenue inside of the secure area. If you are not going to the game, we are asking you to avoid the area around Madison Square Garden tonight. And if you're coming to the area, do not drive. Use mass transit, give yourself extra time, and follow the direction of NYPD officers and security personnel on the ground. For access to public transportation, including Amtrak, LIRR, New Jersey Transit, and the subway, your best bet in the area will be to use the entrances to Moynihan Station on the west side of 8th Avenue on 31st and 33rd Streets, which will be outside of the secure area. We do not anticipate any service changes or disruptions as a result of the security plan. When the game ends, fans leaving Madison Square Garden will exit onto 7th Avenue or 8th Avenue. From there, they will be directed north or south toward West 29th Street or West 36th Street. East-west egress will only be possible south of 30th Street or north of 35th Street. So if you're planning to take an Uber, a taxi, or another ride after the game, you should plan to do that from West 29th Street or West 36th Street, not directly outside of the Garden. For Game 4, we do expect watch parties outside of Madison Square Garden to resume. Those watch parties will be managed with pens and screening, and we do anticipate the same security perimeter for safety purposes. We will have more to say about those plans in the days ahead, but the plan will be modeled after Times Square New Year's Eve, one of the most joyous nights of the year. So the message is simple: celebrate the Knicks, but avoid the MSG area tonight if you do not have tickets for the game or some other valid reason to be there tonight. Thank you, and go Knicks. I am now going to introduce Matt McCall from the Secret Service.
Nobody cares, Matt. Sorry. What do you guys think about what Tish has to say?
Well, do you think that they want the last game to be Wednesday or Saturday? Because Game 4 would be on Wednesday. That's if the Knicks win tonight. Game 4 would be the last game. Well, they would have to win one more, and then that's a sweep, right? So celebration will be Wednesday. But if the Spurs win one of those 2 games, the Game 5 would be let's see, Saturday. So Game 5 would be Saturday. So you think they wanted it on Wednesday or they want it on Friday? Because there'd be more than likely a even larger crowd on either one of those days. I think they probably would hate for it to be on Saturday, because now you're getting I think you'd get even more people, because it's the weekend. But yeah, I think Mike should just go full Mohawk here, and then he could join the Red Hot Chili Peppers,
He's got like the Peaky Blinders haircut now. You know the brother. That's the haircut he's got. It's like the Peaky Blinders.
By the way, that's an awesome show, man. That's one of the best shows ever. So we gotta give him the hat that they wear in Peaky Blinders. We can cover up his hair.
Nah, dude, I want him play. I want to play him play some tunes. You know. Yeah.
Somebody asked, and a lot of people keep asking about her neck. Like, what is going on? She does. I'm not trying to pick on her, but she does turn a certain way. Who knows?
She definitely
like her head is like attached to her neck. Like
she has some disabilities, and she should publicly come out and say them so that people on they haven't held her back from holding any of these titles. Like she has some disabilities, 100%.
There's definitely something going on there. Like, I don't want to pick on her physically because if she has some illnesses or something going on, but there's definitely something going on there because her neck doesn't turn. It's something strange. But I think what's important to discuss here is what we talked about before. John, you had started that conversation. I think this is important to talk about. Is that Madison Square Garden may be in Manhattan, but the bill for manpower gets paid by the entire city to support these events, and that's what people don't have to understand. That's why, John, it's good you started that conversation. So what happens to the other boroughs? And we know Staten Island is already completely shorthanded. We spoke about how the comparisons now to 1960. 1960 was a far different place for Staten Island. When did the Verrazano come up? 64, right? I think the Verrazano came up in 64. Am I right, John? Right? Which completely changed the nomenclature of Staten Island. So to think that the manpower in 1960 is comparable to now is insane. So what happens to a place like Staten Island when they have big manpower issues and everyone's at this mass event in Madison Square Garden? What happens to a place like Staten Island? Well, as John said before, the response times get affected. The patrol staff, the safety for the cops, the safety for people in general takes a major hit. And that's what people don't realize. It's the other four boroughs that really pay the price for an event like this, because the manpower right now has to be taken from somewhere because they sure just don't have it. There's not an excess amount of cops. It's interesting about the NYPD. If you look at the history of it, it's either completely shorthanded or cops tripping over each other, right? There was a time where there was over 40,000 cops tripping over, and now it's so shorthanded with the mass excess, the attrition rate. It's absolutely horrendous. I would love to see what those actual numbers are. I just haven't had the time, but I will. If you go in the MOS database and CCRB records, you can get every roster in the precinct and break it down. I can get those numbers. So when I get a chance, it's a lot of work. I'm gonna do that. I want to break down. If anyone wants to just go into CCRB, it's public record. Go into CCRB's database, look up MOS records, and you can get the entire roster for every precinct. You can get everyone's name that's in the command. This is public information. It's in the CCRB records that's open to the public. You can just type in CCRB MOS records. Do it right now, and you can get the name of every person in precinct. It's really insane, even if they never had a CCRB. So the manpower right now is insane. It's really scary. It's really scary right now. So what's interesting, we often talk about how Zoran Mamdani, his plan to bring in this community safety and be heard. And the reality is New York City is an interesting place. It's kind of dictated how he's going to operate, because even with all these plans, he just can't do it. They have to utilize SRG. They have to utilize all these resources that he's pushed back against because they have zero choice. So it's kind of funny to watch this whole thing play out. Honestly, it really is funny. I laugh. I mean, because they say one thing, they do another. The reality, though, is, would you want to be in New York City right now? Do you trust their ability? I mean, and Marlon, you put up some great information. We've seen in most cities when a city wins a championship, especially a city like Philly. There's terrible fans there, honestly. But how these things break out. So in New York City, will something break out? Absolutely. If the Knicks win the championship at Game 4, or if it's Game 5, it's going to be total mayhem. No matter how much security in place by the NYPD, there is going to be some mayhem. So they better be prepared for it.
Yeah, it's funny, dude. It's funny, like, this is coming out because over the weekend, the New York Sun put out an article. They quoted me in it, and they were asking me about Mamdani, right? About, like, his campaign and his rhetoric versus the reality of what he's been doing and public safety wise. And I was like, this is what I wrote. I was like, you could say you hate the NYPD all day until you become the mayor. And then you're like, oh my God, I got to keep everybody safe. I got to keep the city moving. No, basically, and that's what he's doing. He went back on everything he said he's going to do. And tonight is going to be a complete reversal. There's going to be a zero tolerance around the Garden. Simone DePaula brings up a great point. He says, way back in the 80s, when I was in Manhattan South Task Force, we handled every major event. Sometimes we got help, sometimes not. So, all right, let's take you back there, Simone. Let's take you back to the 80s. Could you imagine federal task force that are handling complex investigations, special victims, all of these people that are involved in trying to get the worst of the worst off of New York City streets? Could you imagine them all standing in the bag outside doing the work of what task force units used to do, or the work of what the SRG now does, basically the riot police, right? The riot police, because that's basically what you guys were, there to respond to periods of civil unrest and to move mass gatherings, move and control mass gatherings. So, that should be a real eye-opener for everybody. The city council testimonies around this and what's happening tonight. And tonight, there should be an after-action report, not on what occurs in Madison Square Garden and around Madison Square Garden at the 3 other watch parties around the city, because I personally believe they're all going to be staffed properly. And I think you're going to see the NYPD do a great job at all of those events. But I think when you look at the rest of the city and how response times are and what people are complaining about happened in the outer boroughs, that, and even in parts of Manhattan, when you go up to Harlem, some parts of the Lower East Side, you're going to see that there's not going to be much of a response, and there's not going to be much cops left at the commands to handle these. So, and that should be an eye opener. Tonight should be an eye opener for everybody. Let's go back to the press conference with Tish, where she starts to answer questions. These are always my favorite parts. Come on, peoples. What's up with this? It's not running.
Put in
Recommendation.
any questions that you have.
Okay.
What the hell?
It's just there's no real way to mitigate crowds and rowdiness and all of that kind of stuff with the president being inside the sort of physical footprint.
We're not going to get into the specifics of it, but the NYPD, in coordination with the Secret Service, made the decision for Game 3, where we have a presidential visit, that we could not support watch parties right outside of the Garden. We are looking forward to bringing back watch parties for Game 4, as I mentioned. But I think New Yorkers are used to presidents coming to town.
I don't know.
And they understand that generally means lockdowns of areas, and that's what you're going to see tonight at the Garden.
The area within that area of Madison Square Garden, if the president leaves, will that be taken down? If he leaves during the middle of the game, for instance, will that be opened up again?
That is going to be managed as a secure area for the duration of the night. There is not going to be a watch party in front of Madison Square Garden tonight. That has been done as part of a security plan put in place for the presidential visit, and we are very much looking forward to bringing back watch parties at the Garden for Game 4 on Wednesday night.
Policing once the game is over, when everybody comes out onto 7th Avenue, I know there's been a lot of rowdiness. How will policing happen with those crowds? Will they be shuffled out immediately? Will it be
as I mentioned in my remarks, there will be, you will not be able to, if you're exiting the Garden after the game, you will not be able to go east-west until you get up to 35th Street, which is the northern boundary, or 29th Street, 30th Street, which is the southern boundary. That will be the only place where you can have east-west egress. There will be no east-west egress inside of the secure perimeter.
Hi, good morning. I know you said rail service won't be suspended in any way. In light of the stabbing that happened at Penn Station, what will security look like for travelers at Penn Station?
Chief.
So our posture in and around Penn Station will not change. We have hundreds of officers assigned to Penn Station and 34th Street subway stops in and around. That's why we do what we do as far as the deployment there, but it will not change in light of the incident yesterday.
Last question, Joe Maria. Typically,
And I'll just add to the chief's answer. There will actually be more cops in and around the Penn Station area because the NYPD is doing such a large deployment to the Garden, both above ground and below ground. That stabbing actually happened in the jurisdiction of the Amtrak police. So if you have further questions on that awful incident, please direct them to Amtrak police.
in events regarding the president going to the Garden, the UFC fight, the rally, so on and so forth, usually the plaza was the main point of contention. Is there anything, or was it just an abundance of caution looking at the global picture that caused you to feel like you needed to expand the zone of the frozen zone, the zone of security?
Yeah, I think looking at where we are with these NBA finals, these NBA finals are not like a UFC fight. And so every event is different, but you'll understand the very specific differences associated with NBA finals and just the incredible interest and excitement that is around it.
Thank you very much, everybody.
So that was it. So they're gonna do a New Year's style deployment for Knicks Game 3. So that is unprecedented. That's never occurred in Manhattan. They're literally shutting down the whole entire perimeter of the Garden. It's never happened for any event. Like this is unprecedented. You know, it's completely unprecedented event. History is going to be made tonight. You know, will it be duplicated? I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say that just to go back on what Eric said a while back. I was reading an article about the impact again last night, and in that article, Pat Lynch said that he noted how the precincts were short back in 2013. Now keep in mind that you know the New York City had about 300,000 less people in 2013. And the precincts had around 34,000 cops. So now the NYPD's own number says it's 33,000. So just something to keep in mind how short we actually are of manpower. And again, that's actually short of the early 90s and total NYPD manpower. And to that, I'm going to say it's a little few. I'm going to say, how effective is it that there are a lot of cops at that particular area? Because the problem is that the other parts of the city are going to be short of cops, right? So what happens when these revelers take the subway and go back home? Are we to think that is the thinking that there are not going to be any other fights or incidents in other parts of the city? You know, when a lot of these revelers who are going to be already intoxicated, you know, head back there. So I hope they have a plan in place for that. You know, I'm glad LaPetri actually answered that though, because that was a question I was thinking about. Considering the amount of incidents we've had at Penn Station, there was a stabbing we just mentioned. Then in the 2025 incidents, the shootings, the one on the transit terminal, and then the one by the Moynihan train station perimeter. And, you know, considering those incidents, I was wondering if they actually have increased the presence down below in the subway itself. So I'm glad he answered that question at least.
What's interesting to me about this, right? So this is what I foresee happening, right? So I think, John, when you say that you think the cops can do a great job and nothing's going to happen in Manhattan, I agree. And so, Marlon, that's why I think we have to expand more on that conversation, because I agree that I agree that the manpower is going to be put in place. Is going to be a large-scale event that's going to be properly prepped for Manhattan when it comes to Madison Square Garden, Bryant Park, and other locations. Manhattan's going to be secure. But is New York City just Manhattan, or is it 5 boroughs? Last I checked, it's 5 boroughs. Because I foresee, and this is exactly what I agree with you, Marlon, is that the real New Yorkers, let's be honest, real New Yorkers, most of them, live in the outer boroughs. So after the event, true New York Knicks fans that want to have a good time, they're headed back home. And as Tish said, what did Tish say in the press conference? Don't bring your cars, right? Take public transportation. So there's going to be a lot of people traveling. Now, I do foresee that most New York fans are out there, New York Knicks fans, they want to have a good time, but there's going to be some bad actors. And those bad actors are going to be going back home to the outer boroughs. And that's where the problem is going to lie. And so here's the thing. If we have some type of event happening, just like you see in Philly, just like you've seen in response to when the Dodgers win, some of the mayhem that has happened in those cities, the same thing I think is going to happen in New York City. I don't want it to happen, but I foresee that Manhattan will be successful, have everything in place, but then we'll see something happen if in the championship. If the Knicks win Game 4, I do think that there'll be some crazy acts happening in the outer boroughs at Game 4 if they win in Game 4. That's where but if nothing happens in Manhattan, will they sell it to the public as a success? Say, hey, we had everything in place, everything went well, but won't mention to you or won't put emphasis on what happened in the outer boroughs that's related to what happened to the Madison Square Garden watch parties or just related to Knicks fans. I don't think they'll mention that. They'll just I foresee and I want to foreshadow that they'll talk about crime happening on the boroughs, but make it seem like it's some type of separate event, that it's unrelated to the Knicks winning the championship. So that's what I foresee happening. I think they'll sell it as a success and give you that mirage, and I'm sure it will be a success. They'll have everything in place. But what about the outer boroughs? The manpower is going to be short because we're taking the manpower for the entire city to support Madison Square Garden, support the surrounding area, support the watch parties, support all these choke points that they're going to, as Rob Lukash often says, right? The choke points in the city to maintain public safety. But what's going to happen to the other boroughs? And that's what I foresee. I see mayhem happening on the boroughs, but they won't show or reflect that it's related to what's happening in Manhattan.
Yeah, this is from when the Dodgers won. Right, there was looting, and as you can see, I think it was a bus that was set on fire. But there was also a street takeover happening at that same location. So you have to wonder if I seriously hope there's a plan in place for the outer boroughs, especially since we've seen the street takeovers happen of late and what those tend to turn into. So,
yeah, I mean, look, it's hard for the outer boroughs. I'm not going to lie. Like it's like I remember the Yankees winning in the 90s. I remember them continuously winning, and I remember the outer boroughs like just literally getting taken over. Every major avenue, there were people driving up and down. As soon as the Yankees won, everybody rushed out onto the streets, right? Taking over the avenues, everybody celebrating. And so, yeah, absolutely. The boroughs all need to have contingent plans in place. And I think for even just now, I mean, because I'm seeing a lot of watch parties everywhere, all over Brooklyn, up at Harlem, Staten Island. I literally out on the street with huge screens watching the game. So does that mean that there's always going to be bad acts as a result of that? No. I mean, we've always had block parties and things like that, moments of celebration. But I think the thing that's significantly different now is that those outer boroughs were more properly staffed and they had their own task force units ready to go at the moment's notice. Where I think today, with the shortness of manpower, most of the excess manpower, like we said, especially when it concerns the Detective Bureau, they're going to be in Manhattan tonight. So that's a big problem. Other thing is that we've just become a soft society now, where every little thing is like it's huge. It's huge. So I hate to bring it up again, but it just is what it is, because I just think we have to discuss it, because this kid's getting dragged through the mud right now. This community affairs cop, New York Post just put an article out about this. This was posted on like TikTok or whatever. And what Sal Greco and this Brooklyn Patriot, or whatever the hell his name is now, Florida Patriot, what they do now is, because they have no original thoughts of their own, what they do is they scour the internet for NYPD videos, for any 10 to 30-second clip that could paint the NYPD in a bad light. And they could say, what is Jessica Tisch doing? The NYPD has been emasculated. Meanwhile, neither of them, one won't even show his face. The other guy will show his face, but never debate anybody publicly or come on live and say what it is. And he's basically bashing Jessica Tisch, saying this is the lack of leadership from the soccer mom and all this nonsense. And I'm like sitting here and I watch this clip and I'm like, and it appears from the video, it looks like the cop takes this kid's head, who was acting like an idiot outside of the Knicks game, and bings it into the pole. Now, just because it appears that way doesn't mean that that's the case. There's plenty of cops there with body cameras. There's a cop right there. There's plenty of witnesses out there. There's an entire investigation that needs to be done. And there's different angles of this. So, drawing back on my own experiences in policing, I've actually had this happen to me several times, where people have banged their head into things. And it looked like, because of the way I was controlling them, it looked like I slammed their head into it. I actually had media report on it. I put a little post out yesterday about a reputed mobster I locked up on Staten Island, who had just gotten out for racketeering. He smashes up a diner. When I apprehend him, he resists. We're able to get him into handcuffs. I have him in handcuffs. I'm controlling his left wrist, and I have my hand on my right hand on his neck or right shoulder blade, like the back of it. And I face him towards a van that just happened to be on patrol that day, because I'm like, all right, I'll just jump in the back of the van with him, because he was kind of a big guy. He just got out of federal penitentiary. He's been working out a lot, So, and, I'm talking to him, trying to calm him down. And just out of nowhere, he just starts saying, oh, man, I just violated Fed parole. I'm going back in. And he whacks his head into the van window. Now, if anyone that was watching that would have said I smashed his head into the window. He went to go do it again. I was able to pull him back, take him down to the floor. So I'm not saying that this didn't happen here. It 100% could happen. Another friends of mine, they locked up a kid that I grew up around. And when they locked him up, the kid kicked the window of the RMP out, kicked the window of the unmarked the RMP out. And as soon as he did it, the window was shattered and there was glasses. He leaned in, handcuffed, and started rubbing his face all over the shattered glass, saying, I'm going to say you did this to me. I'm going to say you did this to me. So these things happen. These are paydays. This kid knows he's on camera. I'm not saying that he slammed his own head into it. And I'm not saying that the cop slammed his head into it. I'm saying that this deserves an investigation before we're going to make a judgment call on it. And I guarantee you this, if at the end of that investigation, it's determined that, in fact, this cop did slam this kid's head into this pole, he's going to face termination. He's going to face serious consequences as a result of it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like cops get held solely, that cops aren't held accountable for their actions when they are. And I'm just sick of the nonsense, man. I'm sick of looking at the post. It's honestly pathetic. It's clickbait, and that's all it is. It's literal clickbait. Did that guy grab him by the neck and the kid slam his head into it, or did he slam him in the pole? I don't know. Just based upon my experience and the way this kid was acting and the way things are today and how everybody's a social media star, I'm leaning on that this kid slammed his head into the pole. I don't know where you guys sit on it, but that's just how I see it.
Well, I mean, the cop could have been trying to push him against the pole to gain control of him, because you see they do it there too, right? And the kid's head inadvertently hit the pole. But I mean, I don't think this cop should be. I don't think anything should happen to him for that. The problem is when perps resist arrest, you increase the likelihood of things going sideways, because you're trying to gain control of the perp, and things happen. The perp rolls around, you know, it's just you're increasing the likelihood, the chances that things go sideways and somebody's going to get hurt. Either the perp is going to get hurt or the cop is going to get hurt while trying to gain control and custody of the perp. And it's a unpredictable outcome that happens when perps resist, and especially in light of the diaphragm law, where every cop is now worried about how much force they can put on the perp before, you know, they get in trouble, or also because of the cameras, because you're worried about, you know, is this going to look bad on camera? There's a whole lot of things that's happening here, and I think the moral of this is that you know, what you shouldn't resist. It just makes outcomes even worse for you, you know. And I'm going to try not to name a certain former show host on this network, because, like I've said before, I think he needs to learn how to grow that show on his own without being without clickbait, you know, and without devolving into being a show about clickbait, you know. And you know, unfortunately, when you show 20-second clips on the internet and you don't give a proper context to it, you're becoming more clickbait, you know.
Yeah, brother, this is clickbait 101. I mean, I see this thing over and over, and I mean, you can't tell if he's trying to control him. Does the kid trip? And even kind of like his head and his body look like they're kind of not in tune. It looks like he almost kind of threw his own head into it at the same time while the cop was trying to control him. So it's hard to make out of. The bottom line is we're missing context, right? And context is what's so important to actually get a true meaning or really understand what's happening in an incident, in a 5-second clip. And if we get a different angle, and we see numerous times watching different videos of police scenarios or even sports, right? Think about sports. When you watch a game, a football game or a basketball game, and they show you different rotations, especially hockey, they're really good at doing that, right? They show you different rotations. Sometimes a play looks completely different from a different angle. Like, wow, I didn't realize the play went that way. And the same thing for police work, right? It's a play. It's a play in time. So if we were to see this from a different angle, it might look completely different. And I like to see where his feet are at, what's exactly happened there. Is he just trying to control him? Is it a slip? To me, just looking at this, and I'm not saying because it's a cop, but I said, listen, do I want to defend cops when they're right? Absolutely. If a cop is right and he does the job, which, in my opinion, which is what's appropriate, right? We all have our own perspectives on policing. I'm going to support that cop all the way. If a cop's wrong, or I think he did the job improperly, I think we're always fair on this network. We'll say it. But just looking at this short clip, it doesn't look like he pushed his head into it. It looks like he was trying to control him. And it looks like the kid almost throws his own head into it also. But again, we're missing context. Context is so important. What preceded this? What happened afterwards? I mean, where exactly is his feet? There's not much. I think this is a terrible interpretation, but it is clickbait 101. And we're getting that from some numerous podcasters out there right now with this clickbait. Listen, it's not cool, right? And that's the whole point of being the Finest Unfiltered, is we want to give you the truth and give you a different perspective. We don't have enough angles. I love to see a different angle. As I said earlier, think about sports. You watch a football game, you watch a basketball game, and they show you different angles. When you watch basketball games, they're great, right? They show you arrows and rotation on a different spin, and they pivot, and they show you a play on different angles, and the play always looks different. Same thing with policing.
Yeah, I'm glad Hunter reminded us. You know, thanks, Hunter. I'm sure he's counting on us to name drop him today. So now you guys are interested in watching.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Brooklyn Audits here. He says, "I'll come debate you guys." And
really?
So we'd love to. You know, hit us up. Hit me up on Instagram. DM me. We'd love to have you on because I seen a lot of shit that you did that was real clickbait in itself and ridiculous. So if you could have a normal civil conversation over the phone, then we could possibly put you on the show. If you think you're just gonna come and talk and blah 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 blah, we don't talk over people. We don't want people talking over us. But yeah, we'd love to have you on. You know. Long Island Audit was too scared to do it, so why don't you try to do it? You know,
listen, If he says he wants to debate us, absolutely. I would love to hear his perspective and see actually how he challenges us. I'm really curious. So come on anytime, man. We'd love to have you. And
Well,
see what that
let's
conversation-
see how he is first. Let's see how his demeanor is, because his demeanor on the street is absolutely ridiculous, and he's lucky.
Oh, it's atrocious.
He's lucky that he never ran into any of us when he was on the street, because he would have spent the weekend in Central booking for minor crime.
At least he didn't say he wants to fight with us. He said he wants to debate with us. So I'll keep it there. That's what he said so far.
Debate's good.
Debate's a good word.
Good. Debate's good. Debate's healthy. You know what I mean? Yeah, I just think it was disgraceful. And the other thing is that, like, you know, a certain civil rights attorney who literally deems justified police use of forces consistently as unnecessary force, or as his new term that he likes to use, extrajudicial punishment. He's on X yesterday saying that he would have slapped the shit out of me when he was a cop. So it's like, wait, you would slap me up when you were in uniform because you don't like the things I have to say, or you disagree with my opinions? Like, wow, you know, it's good that he wasn't an active cop. I mean, because we know he's pulling Eric Adams numbers, under double digits for an entire career. But, you know, to sit there and say, oh, he would have slapped me up when he was a cop, I mean, just shows you the level. Like, I never thought, like, I basically disagree with everyone. So, like, why would I imagine me saying, oh, I don't like that guy, so I would slap him up when I was on the job, I would have slapped him up. Like, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, no, this is America. Like, I police everybody. I treat everybody fairly, whether I disagree with you or I don't. And the same goes for you, Brooklyn Audit. You know, I treat people with respect, you know, or I just expect respect given back in return. That's it. Everybody's entitled to opinion. We're not going to have the same opinions. It's just not realistic. So I just thought that whole honestly, it's just selling garbage. And then just the other end of it is just that it's literally, it's either an advertisement for this attorney or it's clickbait like this. None of it's original content. It's gross, you know. So
before you go, I just want to say, isn't it funny? As soon as we say the word attorney, NIN 311-911 pops up. It's so interesting. It's amazing. You know, I don't believe in coincidences, but here's a coincidence. Attorney, and then we see NIN. I love it.
Yeah,
guys. Hour and a half in. So if you guys haven't already, we'd appreciate if you smash those like buttons and share us out so we could get ahead of those algorithms. And again, we always appreciate you spending time with us this morning.
All right. Now it's time for a message from our partners over at Kalshi. The 2026 primaries are taking shape, and you can trade the biggest political races on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade major primaries, election outcomes, and the biggest political storylines as they happen. On Friday, I turned the $20 trade into $83 on Kalshi. I accurately predicted the Knicks would win Game 2, that Mikal Bridges would make more than one three-pointer, and Karl Anthony Towns would have over 10 points. So what you got up on the screen is that trade, excuse me. Will the Knicks win Game 3 tonight? Right now, the Knicks are currently trading at 54%, meaning a $100 trade would pay out $176.26 if they win Game 3. I'm going to put another bet in with multiple layers. I'll show you guys that one on Wednesday. On Kalshi, you're trading against live peers. You're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. So on Friday, I could have sold out of my position when the Knicks were up 14, and I was almost close to it. But I thought that the Knicks would pull it out, so I didn't, because I had already hit those other two factors. So for a limited time, download the Kalshi app, use our code Finest, and you get $10 when you trade $10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Price, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Yeah, it's super cool that we get to bet on it. You know, it could be a better time that with Kalashi, we could actually bet on the Knicks being the championship. So it is a good time. This is real cool. I mean, if you got to be into this, even if you're not a Knicks fan, if you're not really into basketball, if you're a New Yorker, this is a good time for New York, especially through all the stuff New York's been through, 9/11, COVID. It's a great time for New Yorkers to come together. Honestly, even if you're not a Knicks fan, it's not even just about basketball. Just being a New Yorker, it really is a great time. Madison Square Garden it really is the best arena. If you've never been to Madison Square Garden, if you're a New Yorker outside New York, you have to go there at least once in your life. It's pretty impressive. I went to Madison Square Garden numerous times for Knicks games, but I even went one time for Lenny Kravitz concert. Like, Madison Square Garden is awesome, right? John, you even did a smoker at MSG, right? And so Madison Square Garden is awesome. Just it really is
Bell right
amazing.
there. It's got the garden right on it. Right.
Yeah,
in the
there you
middle.
go. So Madison Square Garden it really is an amazing place. I love it. So with that being said, as Marlon said, it's an hour and a half into it. Like, share, subscribe, please. We're growing together. Our friends and listeners, we really appreciate the engagement. You're helping us grow. And let's keep up with this conversation. I think this is really important, and I think not enough focus has been emphasized about what happened with this female cop being punched in the face. I mean, I think we're really at a ticking point in New York City. Honestly, I mean, cops are getting punched in the face at an alarming rate. It's happening often. When is the NYPD going to take a different stance? I mean, as far as the leadership, that hey, we need to finally support our cops. Or, as I said earlier in the episode, is this something they're content with? Is this something they're content with? Maybe because manpower is so low and crime is not really where it's at. They're playing semantics. That the best thing is just leave it the way it is, because it's default. It's become the default position for the NYPD now. When index crimes are up, felony crimes are up, let's blame the cops. Well, the reason why felony assaults are up is because the cops get assaulted. So you have to ask yourself, wait a minute. If the cops are getting assaulted, what's happened to the people on the street? Don't you see the correlation? It correlates. You can't say the city is the safest place, but the cops are the ones that get assaulted. So safe. It's safe for everybody else, just not for cops. Is that what we're saying here? It's safe for everyday New Yorkers as long as you're not wearing an NYPD uniform. Is that what we're saying to New Yorkers? Because that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, Jason's right. He says Phil and Chino needs to be a sponsor. You're right. I'm going to talk to them about that. I'll be up all month. I'm going to be there next week, so I'll be there on Monday. So we're gonna talk to them. So we're gonna talk to Phil and Chino, Royal Crown. Yeah, no, I think I think there's a lot there, dude. I think there's a lot around this too, because when we talk about the day to day in Penn Station, I mean it's a big problem. People complain about it. Like, a lot of my friends commute into Penn Station every day. They work, they coming in from Jersey, and a lot of them are big dudes. Like, they work out every day. They do jujitsu. They're big guys naturally, and they're intimidating guys. And they tell me how they don't like traveling to Penn Station. How it's like they literally get nervous walking through there. They get an eerie feeling coming through here. So this is Penn Station just on a regular night. This is what cops are left to deal with no apparatus to help the police officers. They're just like, yeah, go down there and deal with this. This is it.
Oh, who's got a secret? Who's got a secret? Who's got drugs for me? Anybody got crystal meth for me? Anybody got crystal meth for me? You want a secret for me? I want a job! I know. There's your junk, man. Oh, who's got a secret?
So, I mean, and like, what are the cops to do here? You know what I mean? What are you going to do? You're going to EDP? You're going to call an ambulance for everybody in the terminal? Like, what are you doing?
Well, first thing they should do is get their hands out of their vest, Money needs to tell these guys how untactical that is, especially when you got a crazy nut job EDP in front of you. But yeah, it's a problem. It's a revolving door. What are they gonna do? There is no solution coming from the leadership at City Hall or the state, to be honest with you. It's just you're locked. Even if you were to lock up that EDP, or they'll be out in how long? and be back there again. So.
Yeah, speaking of New York, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to New York for a couple of days. June 12th to the 14th. I'll be there for the weekend. A fundraiser for Derek in Long Island. Shout out to the Gunfighters Motorcycle Club for us sponsoring it. I really appreciate it. I'll be out there. So I haven't been to New York in a while, pretty much since retirement. So I'm looking forward to. I want to see what the streets of New York City look like right now. I mean, I know I know exactly what's going on in New York. I've been watching, but I'm sure to be there and really feel it and say hello to some of the cops out there. And for the NYPD leadership, if you want to say hello to me, I'd love to anytime, So I'm sure you miss me. But, with that being said, Maul, I'm glad you pointed that out. It really drives me crazy that the tactics by the cops right now, it's just horrendous. It's really sad at this point. Even if it's someone that you're pretty confident that you could physically handle and that it's not going to be a challenge to you, you still should always have your tactics. You should always be in that position. If you're lackadaisical because you think it's someone that is not physically imposing, that's something that you could actually handle, I think that's a fool's errand. Don't ever judge anybody. Don't ever judge anyone by their appearance. I mean, I've done jiu-jitsu. I've trained with some guys that look like bodybuilders. They look like physical specimens, and on the mats, they were just okay. And then I trained with some guys who looked like guy just came off the couch and ate too many potato chips, and man, it was work. So you never know. So don't think that someone is physically is not a challenge just because of their appearance. You just don't know. I mean, in most cases, that's not always the case, right? Usually if someone is out of shape or it usually does reflect, but sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you can't think, someone's a woman, it's not going to be challenged. We all know, I've dealt with people on PCP. We've all, if anyone doesn't know what PCP is, angel dust, right? Anyone who's ever dealt with someone on angel dust, and I worked in the Lower East Side, and there's a street there on 4th Street. Everybody knows the Lower East Side between C and D and the entire, B and C, and the entire street just smells like PCP. It's horrendous. Anyone's ever wrestled with anyone on PCP? Oh, that is a long night. It's a long night. Listen, that perp might be hurting afterwards the next day, but while you fight with them, they're not feeling anything. So to watch some of these cops with their tactics stand there with their hands in the vest, honestly, just drives me crazy. You're sitting there like all lackadaisical, because when it comes time that you're going to deal with someone that may give you some real opposition, that's how you're training. You're training yourself to be so lackadaisical. That's how you're going to operate in those situations also. You always have to be prepared. That doesn't mean you have to be paranoid. You have to be prepared. And I hate the way some of these cops stand. There's no bladed stance anymore. These cops don't have their hands in front of them. They're not indexing. They're not. It's terrible. They're not at that interview stance. I always call it indexing, where your hands are higher than your adversaries. But just the way they stand is horrendous. Just no base in their feet. It's absolutely. I mean, you just blow them right over. It's absolutely. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. How much of that is because they now wear their vest out their uniform too?
Well, that was a terrible decision. That was a terrible decision. Like the old timers, if your vest was exposed, what they would do is they would put like the hand to your head, like, boom, I see you wearing your vest, kid, so I'm going to shoot you in the head. Like smarten up, cover your vest up. And so that all went away. That went away. And I was always a big fan of having your vest inside. I still am. Even when I did anti-crime, I would wear I would get a big sweater, cut off the sleeves, put it over the outer shirt, or jersey, camo shorts, but I wasn't huge on the jerseys. I just wasn't. I would more often just cut a sweater, like a larger sweater, and layer it over.
They don't make jerseys schmedium, right?
Schmedium jersey? No, you can get a schmedium jersey. I have a couple. You can get that. You just got to get it tailored. You got to get a custom fit. So the other thing that so we haven't heard a word from Lou Turco. We haven't heard a word from Scott Monroe. We haven't heard a word from Chris Monahan about allowing New York City mayor to dip into our pension fund, to delay pension payments to our pension fund, something that that has been tried everywhere else, and everywhere else it has weakened the pension fund. It has diminished benefits, and in some cases has taken pension benefits away from pensioners altogether. So we haven't heard a word of them saying whether they'll support it and why, or if they won't. So it's absolutely disgraceful. And so I've been listening to a lot of what's taken place at the New York City Council hearings. And this comes out on Friday at the last New York City Council hearing on 6/4. And it was infuriating to listen to. Excuse me, this was on Thursday. I think this was the most infuriating segment because it's crazy with Lincoln Ressler because he kind of gets it sometimes and then he just doesn't. So what he's going to do here is he's going to spell out the failure of the homeless / mentally ill industrial complex that New York City is spending $2 billion a year on. You could couple the same thing in with the violence intervention group with now we're going to be paying close to $400 million a year for. So I solved the budget gap by getting rid of all of this. So Lincoln Ressler is going to point out all of the faults when it's concerning with the over $450 million we're spending for homeless street encounters, right? We're spending $450 million. We're giving it to these organizations to go out and offer services to homeless people on New York City streets. And so he's going to tell you his experience. And what's truly infuriating about it to me is because he understands that basically what we're doing is you might as well go in your bank account, light it on fire, just give all your money away, just give it away to somebody you know is going to blow it all, or just buy something stupid, or take every dollar you have and just light it on fire. He understands that because he's saying it here, but yet what's New York City Council going to do? They're going to give this program more money this year. So listen to this. I was like, I couldn't believe, I am infuriated. Like, I want to know what is happening with this and why we're spending money and why Scott Monroe, Chris Monahan, and Lou Turco think it's a good idea to allow them to delay pension payments to our fund when we're funding things like this that could literally just go away and it's going to have zero impact. It's going to have zero impact if we stop paying this money, other than we're going to have money to now properly fund things that actually work. Listen to Lincoln Ressler here.
I think we have the highest concentration of street homeless folks in Brooklyn in our district. And when we reach out to providers, they show up days later. We get no real updates. They never show up at the times that we ask when we tell them these are the times and locations to find people and to engage. So I'm just interested generally, how does DHS track and evaluate the performance of the street outreach teams? Do you have comprehensive data on every engagement that is happening and the housing placements that you're making? I am profoundly empathetic of how difficult this work is, but I'm just concerned we don't do enough to hold these outreach teams accountable, and the outcomes are frankly totally unacceptable.
Thank you. And I'll see if we have specifics on how we're monitoring. I know it is, at least my understanding from the time I've been here, that there has been increased not only scrutiny and look at outcomes amongst the providers in the last couple of years, but also I think more consistent rebidding of those contracts. And so I think there is a focus within DHS on holding providers accountable. I'm disappointed to hear that folks aren't showing up when you're giving them information about where people they might be able to engage with folks. We can certainly follow up on the specifics there.
And then they send us an email like every month of like, these were the outreach efforts we made, but with no information on outcomes or no tangible information whatsoever. It's like totally useless. And I just am shocked that you could probably give me a number. Maybe Chief Johns could give it a number on how much we spend annually on street homeless engagement and services, including safe havens. Yeah. Do you have a ballpark figure for us?
Our streets program for 27 is $450 million.
450, that includes all outreach, stabilization beds, and safe havens?
And drop-in centers.
And drop-in centers. Okay. So we're spending $500 million, and I just think our outcomes are embarrassing. And we have so much, we should be doing such a better job in connecting people to the help they need. I've been really encouraged by recent conversations I've had with Housing Works about new models for safe havens that are more flexible even to try to bring people in. We're proud to have opened one of the largest safe havens in Brooklyn in our district in Greenpoint, the largest supported housing development in all of Brooklyn in our district in downtown Brooklyn and on the edge of Dumbo. We want to open the facilities that make a difference and that actually connect people to the care that they need. But I just think that currently our outreach is not working. And I really hope that this is a priority for you for the days, weeks, and months to come, because if we continue with this status quo, it's one of the number one complaints we get in the office of just people who are struggling with severe mental illness on their corners, on their subway entrances,
out in Penn Station, stabbing 5 people, stabbing 3 people last month in Penn Station. And it's like, and if you listen to the whole entire thing where he still goes on his rant about this, he talks about the shelter system too, about how nearly every single person that he's ever spoken to that's homeless says they've been to the shelter system and they don't want to go there because it's so poorly run and it's so dangerous. And now you're looking at like another $500 million to operate these facilities. And it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? He's like, oh, I hope you're going to look at this in the next few months. No, if like you're a competent politician, you're going to be like, yeah, all of this funding's gone. All right, so you have no data. You can't even tell me how you keep tabs on the money that you're spending out. Okay, no problem. That's not getting funded this year. Figure out a better plan. Come back to me next year. It's literally having zero impact on the streets in New York. And yet we're funding $1 billion to it. And this is what Scott Monroe, Lou Turco, and Chris Monahan want to give your money to. This is what it is. This is what all of you that are like, it's not a big deal if they weaken our pension system because, hey, I might get a raise. And they're doing all this great legislation out of nowhere. Legislation is flying around, flying right to the governor's office to give NYPD officers pension increases, and nobody thinks anything's weird about that. They're gonna literally rob your future for this.
Yeah. It's John is right. I often hear things from wrestler at these hearings that it's like I agree with, and it seems like this guy knows what's going on, And then other times you hear like we showed you on Friday, like you hear instances where this guy is like, what are you talking about, And you have to understand when wrestler goes into things like basically not wanting anybody to be arrested for crimes anymore, it's because that's the agenda behind him. Okay, when he says things like that, that's him trying to appease his campaign funders. In this case, Streets PAC, which is a massive donor of his. Okay, Streets PAC is the advocacy arm of Transportation Alternative and Streets Blog and billionaire Mark Gorton, who wants to, turn New York City into a 15-minute smart city, wants to break up New York City into 15-minute smart city districts. So when wrestler says things like he did, it's because they don't want that. What they want to do is get rid of Rikers and turn it into more development for these real estate investors. And the hedge funds are tied to the real estate investors, which is why Mark Gorton is involved in the Smart City Initiative and redistricting, because Mark Gorton is the billionaire who he also owns a hedge fund, right? So when you see wrestler, when you see him not making sense, it's because he has to appease his campaign funders, right? But I agree with him in this instance. Like there's no metrics to measuring the success of a lot of these NGOs. We keep talking about it on and on because it's a massive problem considering the millions of dollars that get funneled to these guys, and there's nothing to show for their work, Whereas we harp on the city agencies like the NYPD, the FDNY to show results for the taxpayer money that goes to them. These organizations have nothing. Okay, it doesn't matter what they do. There's no, there's no grading their work, and it's crazy that our unions aren't saying anything about this when they're the city is asking us to stop contributions, to the pension fund, to delay contributions to the pension fund, when there's tons of money here that you can, you can get back if you scrutinize what they do and you try to make them a lot more efficient than they clearly are, if they don't have any metrics to measure, their successes or failures. But I see this was posted on the Chiefs website, and it seems like at least Vinny is seemingly taking a more harsher stance against pension deferment. We're gonna hold you to this, Vinny, and if this is just a PR stunt, where behind the scenes you're still negotiating those terms with the city, we're gonna call you on it if you do later on. Okay.
You know what's interesting? So the last episode that we did, the title was, "Do the city council hearings actually make an impact? Do they actually do anything?" Right? Pretty much that was our title for last episode on our Friday roundtable. And so you have to ask yourself, here's someone like Lincoln Ressler, right, who introduced legislation for supporting Be Heard, supporting community-based apparatus. He's really a supporter of other means than policing, especially when it comes to the mental health crisis, right? He's a real supporter of the community, of Office of Community Safety. He's a supporter of Be Heard. So you think in a situation like this, asking the questions that he did and getting those astronomical numbers that are spent and nothing has been resolved, you think he would want to take a deeper dive into it and say, well, we got to do something about this now, not wait months, because he's a supporter of helping the mental health by other means than policing, by not arresting them and finding other means, right? He wants to close down Rikers. He's a big supporter on other services and other resources than incarceration, all right? And many mentally ill get incarcerated because they're out there committing crimes, because that's their only way to support themselves, right? If they have substance abuse, if they're homeless because they're mentally ill, and how do they support themselves? In many ways, it's committing crime, so they're arrested and they get incarcerated. So you think someone like him would say, no, we need to figure this out now, not in a couple of months right now, because he's a supporter of people with mental health. And we've told you numerous times on this episode, we spoke about this. The cops are doing their job. The systems are in place, but the problem is when mental health illness, and especially those that are suffering from mental health illness or homeless, and both, and they go to these shelters, it's horrendous. They want to go back on the streets. That's the last place they want to be, is at these shelters. They think about that. For these homeless, they'd rather be on the street than some of these shelters, because the environment is just chaotic. It's unsafe for many of the mental health, those that are suffering from mental health illness, and those that are homeless or substance abuse, all the above. Some of these shelters are just not safe locations. It's unsafe. The environment is terrible. They're not clean. It's not sanitary. So they'd rather be on the street. So you think Lincoln Ressler right there and then say, no, we need to straighten this out now. This is ridiculous that we're spending $500,000 and nothing's got resolved, especially when you're a supporter. So there you go. There is the question, and here is the answer. Do those community council, those city council hearings actually make an impact or do anything? The answer is no. In simplest terms, no.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. Like if you were really a steward of New York City taxpayer funds, if you were really an auditor for Brooklyn Audit, you would be saying, okay, well, what are we doing? Why am I going to give you this money? Brooklyn Audit's asking why Marlon was fired. And just so you know, Marlon was fired without due process from the NYPD for refusal to take a vaccine for natural provable antibodies that he already had from getting COVID-19 in the line of duty. So there's that one. But as far as when it comes to Lincoln Ressler, here's where he misses the mark. In a prior segment on this, and this is going back to the NYPD's budget hearing on 6/1, he was pushing Jessica Tisch to support closing Rikers Island. Closing Rikers Island, I gave the numbers. I forget what the numbers were off the top of my head, but they were ginormous. It was in the billions, the plan to close Rikers Island and goes to a borough-based jail. And what that would do was have to bring down the current population of Rikers Island, which is 7.6 thousand people, New Yorkers, it would have to bring it down to 3,300. And they have no way or plan on how to do that. So he wants Jessica Tisch to basically arrest less people. He's like, I need you to be a plan in going to this borough-based jail system that we put in that's going to cost taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars and doesn't even house the current population that we currently have in there. No plan on how to get people to stop committing crimes, stop getting people convicted. Nah, we're just going to free them all. So here he is asking the NYPD now about why they have NYPD cops in front of a particular establishment. 2 NYPD cops consistently posted in one of his precincts. Here he is asking, and it's like, well, what basically Wrestler's advocating for here is, you know what? Just let them steal. That's what he's saying. Just free them all. Just let them steal. Here's Wrestler.
We have I think, global international retailer. I won't shout them out here, but they're from Canada. They're based in our district. They kind of famously have policies that around no chase, no intervention policy when people steal from them. And so in one of my precincts, 3 or 4 commanding officers in a row have made the same staffing decision where they station 2 cops outside of this business all day, every day. And as I understand it, it's for CompStat purposes, that it's to try to reduce the crime that's coming from that business, to drive down. And it's just like, for me, I would much rather have those 2 cops in the heart of downtown Brooklyn rather than standing outside of this business, keeping the whole neighborhood safe rather than doing the bidding, basically working for free.
Well, officers should not be doing, if you're implying that they're doing like private detail.
I'm not. I mean, I think they're functioning as a private detail, but I think that the reason that that 3 or 4 commanding officers in a row, so I'm not throwing any specific commanding officer under the bus, that they've stationed them outside of this business is because the business has a no chase, no intervention policy on thefts. And so to reduce the number of thefts, so their crime stat numbers aren't bad, they just keep 2 of the officers in front of this freaking store every
Your
day.
department will talk to you about that.
So they should not be stationary in front of a store. They momentarily for, an amount of time.
All day, every day. And you know the business.
I know exactly.
You know who I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Some people here might have athletic clips.
It should be at least a block foot post where those officers walk up and down the block. There are times that they're going to stop.
Inside a mall.
I understand. I'll be square more. I'm very well versed on it. With, the CompStat message that you sent, I will tell you this. The message from myself, the chief of department, and all the executives is you do not run your command for CompStat. If you run your command for CompStat, you will no longer be a commander. It's a process, and the process is at the right place, but I understand your concerns.
I love CompStat. I'm not here to criticize CompStat. I just think that when we're managing toward it, we have problems. I appreciate your comments, and I hope you look into this issue involving this corporation that you know well across the city, because I can't imagine I'm the only one who sees it.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you think there, Marlon? Because I heard him saying, I just don't arrest them. Who cares? Let them steal. That's what I heard.
Yep. That infuriated me, Why don't they just be honest with Lincoln Wrestler there, We're a country of laws, okay? What do you want us to let criminals just go on and steal, First of all, the thing is that store may be fine with writing off losses from theft. But if you allow that to continuously happen there, you're creating an atmosphere where the perps are going to come there and then they're going to come to other targets in that area. Okay. Why, you're inviting an atmosphere of lawlessness. So, and we're the police, LaPetra should have said, we're the police. Our job is to prevent an atmosphere of lawlessness from happening. Okay. As long as stealing is a crime, we're going to do our job we're going to do the best we can to prevent people from stealing. And if that means every now and then a cop stopping in front of that store to take a peek inside and see what's happening, that's what we're going to do. Okay. Instead, they placate Wrestler and they tell him we don't police for CompStat, which is clearly BS. Okay. Because the thing is, we have a problem with, we say policing for numbers isn't right and it doesn't work. But we do police for CompStat because theft, and all these other crimes show up on CompStat. So what are you saying? We don't police to keep those numbers from popping up? Of course we do. You know, we don't want repeated instances of theft at that location, and that's the bottom line. That's what you got to tell them instead of placating him. You know, grow some balls. You know, this is why the NYPD is in the shape they are, because none of these chiefs can tell them, dude, we're the police. You know, they always got to dance around them like they're afraid. Dude, man, grow some balls.
This is why I always say when I hear LePetri, it's to my disappointment, because Chief LePetri, Michael LePetri, was a cop. He's actually super intelligent. He's someone that knows how policing works. Clearly, he could lead this department. Clearly, honestly, he would be quite acceptable, and probably he's actually more suitable to be the police commissioner than Jessica Tisch is right now as we speak. But he lacks balls, and balls are important. He lacks moral principle, because I find it unreasonable for him to stand there and try to put politics over policing and just give the reality. You're damn right. He should tell Lincoln Wrestler, you're damn right. It's CompStat. And what is CompStat? It's putting cops where the conditions and the trends are, the clusters are in a particular precinct. And if those trends are thefts, we need to stop those thefts. And that means putting police officers standing post at a location. We do that quite often. Why are they balking at this question where we do that often in policing? If there's a shooting at a location, they put cops fixed there in a location to quell it, to bring it down. If there's a theft in a location, we put cops there to stop those thefts. So why are they going to balk at that question? This is where I have a problem. This is why I'm disappointed by Chief Michael LePetri, and that's why I often refer to him as a jellyfish, because he's super intelligent. He knows exactly how policing is supposed to work. It is CompStat. He should tell him, you're damn right, it is CompStat. That is a CompStat policing principle. What is a policing principle? Is you put cops where you need them to stop a particular condition, a cluster, a trend, a pattern, or any form that needs to be addressed in a precinct. And for this, it would be a condition. The condition's theft. But what Lincoln Wrestler is saying is like, hey, I have no issue with thefts. That's upon the store. The store should handle it. The police shouldn't be involved. We shouldn't be incarcerating people for stealing things. That's what Lincoln Wrestler is saying. And Chief LePetri, if he didn't have, unfortunately, he doesn't have balls. He should be wearing a ball gag. He should have fired back and said, you're damn right. That's policing 101. And we stop theft. And if someone's committing a crime there, we'll arrest them. And we'll try to stop. And how do we stop the theft? By making arrests. And how do we stop more thefts? By making more arrests. But they lack balls, and they put politics over policing. They just pandered to the theme and the ideology of Lincoln Wrestler than telling him what the reality of policing is. Because the reality is that is CompStat 101. But instead, they didn't fire back with giving the realities. And that's why I refer to him as a jellyfish, because I'm disappointed by his response. He knows damn well that Lincoln Wrestler is a supporter of anti-incarceration. And that's why they're trying to placate and pander to that rather than saying, well, listen, this is policing. That's what policing is. Maybe when Officer Community Safety comes, that things will change. But in the meantime, while we're here, that is CompStat 101. And who speaks at CompStat? Chief Michael LePetri.
Well, I mean, he's I think almost a decade now. He sleeps in his office overnight and goes through every piece of paper to prepare for CompStat on Wednesday for Thursday CompStat. So, I mean, we are a CompStat driven department. Does that mean that that's wrong? You know, it's wrong if you're getting numbers for numbers in a crime area, but if you're actually doing targeted enforcement, something that I continuously hear from LePetri and now Tisch, which is precision policing. Precision policing is CompStat policing. So what are you talking about, Chief? You have a CO who has a problematic location. I think Marlon said he believes that it's Lululemon. That's who I believed he was talking about as well. Where they're consistently getting grand larcenies coming out of there and robberies, and they're not stopping anybody, and yet you're still continuing to take these reports for them. Do I think it's an effective use of manpower to have them basically operate as a quasi-private security for Lululemon? No, I don't. I think it's bad, but at the same point, I understand why the commanding officers are doing it. You know, I understand it because like something's got to be done. Somebody's got to do something, right? You care about precision policing. What am I going to do? I'm going to go up to CompStat as the CO of wherever that is, whether it's the 9-4, the 8-3, the 8-8, somewhere, wherever, you know, wherever Lincoln Ressler is in charge of, whatever. You're the commanding officer of this command, and you're just consistently taking the numerous grand larcenies every day out of this one store. What am I going to do? I'm going to go up to Constat and be like, yeah, well, they don't do this, they don't do that. Well, what'd you do? What'd you do, Inspector or Captain? Me? Nah, nothing. I don't police for Comstat, boss. I don't police for Comstat, boss. I don't know. It's not my problem. No, it is your problem.
I do what Lincoln Ressler wants.
Yeah. Oh, you know what I did? You know what I did, Chief? You know what they should say? You know what you should say? You know what I did, Chief? I pulled the guys back because I want to join Lincoln Ressler's mission of lowering the overall headcount of Rikers Island, so that this way we can meet the borough-based jail system. We can lower our incarceration rates. I'm one with the plan with New York City, boss. And so I step back because I don't police for Comstat anymore. How long do you think that guy's career is going to last? How long are we going to be calling him commanding officer? He'll be transferred by the time Comstat's over. Personnel will already have been ordered. Yeah, remove this guy as the commanding officer, put the XO in the position. So it's a joke, and I totally agree with you, Marlon, here. And here's another thing with LaPetrie too, right?
Wait, before you go on that, John.
Sure.
One more point about that, right? Here's the thing: are they gonna now tell the cops who may have stopped in front of that store that now we're gonna manage your movements? So you can only stop in front of this store for so and so seconds, or just walk around that store. Don't stop at that particular store. While at the same time, those cops on that foot post are going to be responsible for any, crime that happens on your foot post while you're working it, right? So if there's a big boosting a pattern in Lululemon, these kids run in there and snatch up as many clothing as possible, and then they run out. Now the CO is going to come to the sergeant or the lieutenant or whoever and be like, "Where was your foot post on where were your guys? Where were they?" No, so this is what I don't understand. It's their foot posts, and they're trying to prevent crime from happening on their foot posts, but we're placating Lincoln Ressler here. So now it's the cops are going to get in trouble now if there's crime on their foot posts, even though you told them they got to walk around the store now.
John, before you go, I just want to say this, and this is why I call Chief LaPetrie a jellyfish, because his response to Lincoln Ressler to me was kind of defensive. Why you have to defend that position? You should have just came firing back on the offense and say, "You're damn right. This is the Comstat. This is the policing principle, and wherever the problem is, we go address it." Now, I think Mike Marino 139 slams it right here. Chief Mike slams it. He says, "I think the conversation is with Lululemon. They need to change policy, provide security to free up the police." That's absolutely true. That's the bigger conversation. Say, hey, you know what? As the chief of the department, we're in a conversation with Lululemon or whichever store it is to make sure that their security is up to par so that we can free up the police. But until we get to that point, the police have to respond with their issues. And theft is an issue. Last I seen that theft is still on the books as a crime. Grand larceny is still a crime. And those have major implications and affect quality of life and affects the conditions in the city. But we have people like Lincoln Ressler who are anti-incarceration and don't want people arrested for stealing items because, in my opinion, Lincoln Ressler has never had those effects because everything was handed to him by the silver spoon. So he doesn't know what it is to be in a situation where people stealing things. He's not affected. He's not shopping in the mall. So he doesn't feel those effects. He doesn't have everyday life. Neither does Jessica Tisch. These people live in a different plane. So this is just ridiculous. But the fact that he's firing back as defensive, I have a problem with. He should have been on the offense and said, yeah, you're damn right, this is Comstat, and not have to defend that position, but rather throw it back to Lincoln Ressler and say, where are we not connecting here? I don't get it. You don't want a safer city? You don't want a safer location for your people, your constituents that live there? But instead, you want to just let them take things off the rack? Why do you think it's so expensive in the city? If there's so much theft, guess what happens? Things become even more expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is LaPetrie again showing his inability to actually have solutions or to address or even speak with these council members. He has a LaPetrie again.
Residents constantly complain about the Penn track, and I know there's been ongoing stuff, operations back there, but it would be a great idea if you kept the community updated as to what was being done. Obviously not the sensitive stuff, but at least let the community know the progress that is being made, or if any progress is being made, as opposed to continually see the visual we always see, and that's sex workers walking the streets back there. And also, let me finish, the issue, there's been multiple social media videos that have been made about the Penn track ongoing, and this has continued to put a blight, or it attempts to put a blight on the 42nd Council District. But if residents are hearing and seeing PD is working on their behest as far as to try to solve this issue, I think that would go a long way with helping out as far as on the PR side or communicating to the community. So if we can get an update, I greatly appreciate that.
The chief of department will answer the question.
Sure. So obviously, Chris, many years in
Yes.
New York.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Dealing with the Pennsylvania track, in and around that Linden Boulevard area. You're right. It is stubborn, and it is somewhat frustrating in that, with the change in the law and a class action lawsuit that happened years ago, it has hurt our local enforcement, meaning, the precincts aren't really able to deal with the actual prostitution John situation. But our vice enforcement unit consistently hits the Penn track, as does our human trafficking team in and around some of those stubborn hotels, motels, 100 Jersey, things of that nature. I've also tasked the precinct commander to put a plan in place to deal with low-level crime in and around those hotels along the Penn track, meaning the quality of life issues that we do see that facilitate some of the violence when it comes to, the prostitution. But I will tell you, it is the number one location in the city of New York when it comes to enforcement by our specialty units, namely Vice and the human trafficking side on Vice.
I know there was efforts up in Roosevelt also. So if we can get the same type of attention, that would definitely, I know it made an impact in that particular district, I believe, from what I've heard. So if we can get that same type of attention, I'll greatly appreciate it.
So he's like, oh, could you do some social media tours and have Kaz Daughtry and John Shell come on down here to make all these films and then bounce, and then all the same problems persist? And it's literally like that segment contradicts the prior segment, because he's like, oh, I tasked the commanding officer to put a plan in place. So, okay, I can't do anything. You're telling me you don't want any of this things to be done. The law says this says that. We're not going to think outside of the box. You're not going to work with other agencies to ensure that the hotels police what's happening in there better. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to station 2 cops in front of that. In front of that hotel, and we're gonna enforce minor crimes, and then it's gonna look like, then you're gonna have Chris asking like Lincoln Russell, like, why are those 2 cops there? Well, it's because we're trying to stop the minor crimes in and around it. Well, how are you bringing down the population of Rikers? We're not. Do you want us to lock people up or not? Like, do you want to? How are you stopping people from committing crimes? So wild to listen to, and just. I've been reading the Lexow investigation, which was the first investigation into police corruption ever in New York City, into the NYPD. It started in 1894. And one of the things at that time, one of the main issues in there was lack of enforcement from precinct commanding officers and the upper echelon of the NYPD in regards to prostitution spots. And they were actually bringing cops up and commanders. They were actually bringing commanders and high-ranking officials up on charges for refusing to do anything about it. So when I hear this now, and I hear LePetri's response to it, in 1894, he would have been removed from office for this response. Because what they were trying to say is that, like, you're not policing it on purpose. Either there's corruption there or you're inept, but either way, we can't have you because we don't want all this prostitution around.
Yeah, just a little housekeeping for our viewers who aren't in the know. So this is Pennsylvania Avenue in the East New York section of Brooklyn, and what the councilman there, which is I forgot his name. It's
Chris Banks.
Chris Banks, yes, that's right. He's talking about an issue that supposedly the NYPD solved 2 years ago with Kaz and Chell, and the drones, and apparently they didn't. This is a little piece from the news about it.
Prostitution has resulted in 18 arrests just this year. The area known as the Pentrack is a concern for many Brooklynites. And today, News 12's Julia Joseph met with one of the Strip's biggest critics, who's working to make the community safer.
At 11 o'clock this morning, Councilman Chris Banks and I saw it all.
We're seeing a large amount of traffic amongst the Penn Strip, and they're picking up the girls. Then they're going into the residential blocks, and the activities, the illicit behavior is taking place.
Doesn't matter if it's day or night, sex workers linger around the track at all hours of the day.
We get multiple complaints, whether it's at a precinct council meeting, parents who are taking their children to school.
When you see a car loop around more than once, you know the Johns have found their girls. This process we saw numerous times in just 1 hour of being on the Strip.
We're in broad daylight right now. Is that a shock to you?
It's a just confirmation that the Pentrack is real.
Real indeed, and there's little to no security or boots on the ground to combat it. Within the last year, police have made 6 arrests for those engaging in prostitution and an additional 12 for those patronizing it.
Yeah. So this, keep in mind, that report was from last year, and there's others from 2 years ago. So this has been an ongoing issue, and it's from just hearing LaPetrie, I don't think they have a plan for it either. And again, part of a real plan would be a sustained long-term police presence in the area, and you can't have that unless you have manpower. And again, what's the big elephant in the room? There's not enough cops.
You know what's interesting about that, right? Because we also heard from Zohran Mamdani. One of his campaign promises was to decriminalize prostitution, right? And so, with that being said, are we going to pander to those politics, or are we going to actually go out there and police? And there's a big issue here. So I don't think the operations on Roosevelt were a success on Roosevelt Avenue, because it's still going on right now. And what we did a prior episode on this, and I remember John and I spoke about this. Marlon, I'm not sure if you were there that day. I think you were out that day. But if you remember, we spoke about the operation on Roosevelt Avenue and saying there's a bigger problem, that the operation was actually going to cause displacement and actually displace it and cause it to actually spread to different parts of the city. And sure enough, it looks like we were right, John. And this is what's happening, because the bigger issue is what the human trafficking going on, and some of the gangs that come from South America that are pushing this in New York City, which is Tren de Aragua and some of the other ones, and some of these gangs from South America that have come here with a lot of money that are pushing it. So the bigger problem is also why is the NYPD still operating as a sanctuary city and not cooperating and coordinating and collaborating with their federal partners, which is ICE, to get out and eradicate some of these issues, which goes beyond just prostitution on the street, right? Just arresting the Johns is not enough. We need to address the human trafficking that's going on, and we need to get some of these illegals out of here. That's the real problem. So while this councilman is short-sighted, thinking that just making some small arrests will actually stop the problem, it won't, because we've seen the effects on Roosevelt Avenue, and it's there, and it's larger now than it was before, because it's growing, and what's behind that is human trafficking. So yes, do arrests have to be made, but along with that, there needs a long-term case and long-term investigation, and we need to collaborate with ICE to get out these illegal military-age males that are here pushing human trafficking. So not only is this Roosevelt Avenue, but it's now displaced to different parts of the city, as we predicted. So no shocker there.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the entire agenda, you know, and I laugh when I hear these city council people complain about crime in that district. It's like, well, and it's not just the Dems, and it's not just the socialists, and I laugh when I hear from the Republicans too. I'm like, well, what do you expect them to do? Like, at this point, like, you're asking in one breath, you're saying you want less enforcement, or you're not saying anything about the insane legislation that's coming down, or your colleagues in the council putting these insane bills, or the people in the assembly or the Senate. You're doing nothing. In fact, you're endorsing half of them, or you're playing patty cake with them. And then you sit there and you're like, Well, what's going on in my constituency? I'm getting complaints. I'm getting this. It's like, all right, so why don't you put something in place to stop this? Why don't you, when you have Jessica Tisch sitting in front of you, ask her when the hell you're getting more cops? All right, yeah, it's a safety issue for you to tell me the amount of cops. Okay, no problem. How many cops am I getting and when am I getting them? Right? You don't want to hold the police commissioner's feet to the fire. You don't want to hold your colleagues' feet to the fire. And yet you're going to sit there and blame the NYPD when, clearly, most of you listen to the show. You know what's happening. You have a diminished department that's been emasculated. You have weak, incompetent, and inept leadership. And you're sitting there going, well, what am I supposed to do about the complaints that I'm getting? Well, you're supposed to deal with it, because the same way that you suck it up and you don't hold the police commissioner's feet to the fire and you don't hold your colleagues' feet to the fire, well, guess what? You're getting the type of policing that you fight for, which is no policing at all. It's social media policing. It's media policing. Like tonight. Tonight they'll have a big focus around Madison Square Garden. Guess what your districts are going to look like? Unless your district is in Manhattan, near Bryant Park, near Madison Square Garden, your constituents aren't getting the services that they pay for or deserve.
And even to that, there's been a lot of shootings lately in Midtown Manhattan. So even you guys who live in those great areas, or I wouldn't necessarily say great, but I'd say high-profile areas, are still not getting the service you deserve when the cameras aren't there. So, yeah. I don't know if we're gonna get to it, but there's another clip where Tish is talking about her she's talking about what they're doing with the rookies right now, and I think that plays into this, because it's again, it's whereas last year at the State of the NYPD 2025, she mentioned how the precision policing zones were being cops were being sent there, and overtime details from the mobile response mobile field forces. Right now, it's rookies being sent there, and I think that all plays into the part where you have the police department was short of cops and was using overtime, and now that the overtime, now that the city's fiscal mess is coming to light, they're switching to using rookies. But again, I think it's all the same elephant in the room, that there's not enough cops, and they keep trying to find ways to finagle the lack of proper manpower. And I don't think it's working. It's not going to work out for Chris Banks, for Councilman Banks. I hope he actually holds the police department's foot to the fire, because this has been an ongoing issue for multiple years now. And also, the thing is, you'll never fully get rid of prostitution from society, okay? But the problem is, when you have prostitution open in the streets like that, that's a massive problem, because it's telling you that there's a certain that it's telling you that the prostitutes and the Johns are they feel a certain amount of emboldenedness to go and do this in the open light now, and that's a problem, because that tells you how things have changed from the prior years, okay, where prostitution did happen on Pennsylvania Avenue, but it was just harder to get because they weren't openly walking the streets like they do now.
Yeah, that's that's a great point. So I think that prostitution is the oldest profession of all time. You'll never stop it. You're right. I think that's where the politicians, I think that's where they're projecting the wrong message. And I think when they say decriminalize prostitution, I guess you could say what happens between two consenting adults, even if it's paid for. Who should really interject that conversation? I think it's for another day. But I agree with you. When it's out and open on the street, it decimates the neighborhood, right? Because it's about quality of life, and appearance matters, right? If you drive into a neighborhood and there's low level and quality of life issues right in the open, you have to say to yourself, well, what else is going on here, right? You see an eyesore, it doesn't look right. It changes the nomenclature, makes the neighborhood look terrible, right? When you see women standing in the street and people picking them up, and I agree with you, it shows the comfortableness there to, hey, well, what else? If they're able to do this out in the open, what else are they capable of? And it's like anything else. If someone's house is dirty, you have to say, well, on the outside, if they're not maintaining it, what does it look like on the inside, right? And what happens if someone's house is a mess, if they don't take care of if they have a lawn in front, if they don't take care of their grass, or they don't keep their concrete clean, they don't keep their home clean, what happens to the houses next to it? It's a domino effect, right? And that's what the whole key behind broken windows and intrusive policing is. One broken window could change the entire neighborhood. Same when you go in someone's home, if it's clean, it's well kept, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to make sure that you keep it clean. But if it's a mess already, and if you threw a piece of paper on the floor, it wouldn't be noticed. So it's the same thing when if women are standing there on the street and engaging in prostitution in the street, we have to say to yourself, what else is going on there, right? It's complete eyesore. If they're able to do this in the open, well, obviously the neighborhood's not being well kept. It's not being maintained. It's just another stain on that neighborhood. So I agree. And the other thing we have to say to ourselves is these politicians, they cry out. The same politicians that want to defund the police cry out to the police, say, hey, I got these issues going on in my neighborhood. Can you help? And meanwhile, they all have this ideology of anti-incarceration, but yet they go to the police for help. What do you think the police do? They make arrests. That's the job of the police. Their contribution is by making arrests. And then how do you stop crime? By making more arrests. And out of those arrests, the job is to try to gather intel, debrief, get information to stop crime by making more arrests. That is the focus. That is the main focus of the police. If you look at a cop in 1900, or if you look at a cop now in 2026, what is the commonality? Is they carry handcuffs. Nothing has changed with that. You could have body cameras. We could add tasers. We could add vests. The one thing that has never changed that will always be the same is the cops then and now are carrying handcuffs. And 100 years from now, if policing is still around, that profession still exists, they'll be carrying handcuffs. So that is the main focus, and that is the mission of the police, is to make arrests, to stop crime, by making more arrests. And yet these politicians are anti-arrest, they're anti-incarceration, and yet they always reach out to the police for help and see what the police response is. It's the most ridiculous thing. It's this back and forth game. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and here's another contradictory clip from everything that was testified at the public safety hearing in the NYPD. Marlon posted this on X. Let's play it and we'll talk about it. This is Jessica Tisch basically talking about her new model of precision policing, or what we refer to it as broken windows policing, also known as impact ops.
The reason we have been able to drive down shootings so far is we deploy officers in those neighborhoods, on those streets at those times. And that plan has worked to, with tremendous historic success. So most of the officers who are working on those streets in our zones, we call them, are actually the new officers that we hired last year. They spend their first 18 months in the department, learning those neighborhoods, learning those streets, learning police work, and they have done an extraordinary job driving shootings down.
Okay.
It's weird because it sounds exactly what I did in 2004. It was called Operation Impact, and it was our first 18 months on the street, and it was basically rookies turning out rookies, right? And it was that's what we did. We went into the high crime areas. We were deployed on foot. We had a focus on enforcement, arrest, summonses, and it's just weird. It's almost like this wasn't a new invention by Jessica Tisch. It's almost like broken windows policing works. I don't know. I mean, or does it? I don't know. I know you got a lot of thoughts on this, Marlon. What are your thoughts about all of this? Like what she just said?
Yeah, I do have a lot of thoughts. I'm trying to quickly pull up a report. I was digging into the impact and the studies that were written about it, and that were written about it in the 2000s and post Garner and post Akai Gurley about the impact of impact policing on community relations, right? And crime itself. So for those of you who have forgotten, about the Akai Gurley. Akai Gurley was he was a resident of one of the pink houses in East New York. He was going onto into the stairway with his girlfriend in the pink houses, and apparently two rookies were doing a vertical. A vertical is a patrol, doing a patrol on the doing a patrol in housing. Basically, you're walking up the stairs, and you're stopping in on every floor and checking, seeing what activity is going on. Because in the projects, a lot of activity tends to happen in the stairway. We're talking everything from smoking, drinking, people having sex, people, going using the bathroom in there. You name it. It happens a lot of times in these project stairways, and so cops do patrols in them, right? And in New York City, those buildings tend to be pretty large too. We're talking upwards of maybe 14 floors or plus. So they were doing a vertical, and this cop, Peter Liang, he was a rookie cop. He had his gun drawn as he was doing the vertical, and he accidentally discharged his firearm, and the bullet ricocheted off the wall and struck Akai Gurley, and he collapsed. And the rookies were arguing about who should call the bosses, and let them know. And eventually, the Akai passed away, and Peter Lang was indicted. Eventually the DA eventually he was put on probation, and he had to do a certain amount of hours for community service. But one of the consequences of this was the removal of impact. Yeah. Okay. And if I don't know if you can see this yourselves, but this was remarks made by Bratton, and he says that I wanted to change the dynamic of kids coming out of the academy and immediately being put into Operation Impact assignments, where they really have an almost single-minded focus and really don't get a full flavor of the job. What he means is, once they get out of the academy, their focus is strictly on getting the bad guys and preventing crime from happening on their footballs, and they don't get the full flavor of what being a cop entails, which also entails being customer service and interacting with the communities. And that's when the department decided to shift more towards the neighborhood policing model, where these guys would get at the academy and have an FTO and be placed in a car sometimes with the FTO to show them the ropes. So the conclusion from Impact was that one of the inadvertent consequences of it was that you have rookies teaching rookies, and they don't really get to learn the job. And in Bratton's own words, it was what he said. He said that it was a fuse getting ready to be lit for potential incidents like this, because the rookies are untrained. And so it's pretty ironic that not even, a little more than 10 years later, here we are kind of shifting back to old habits of putting rookies on the street without them actually having the proper training, which we said before, they don't get proper training in the academy. And here they are being put out on the street and being left to fend for themselves without actually knowing what it really means to be a cop.
Well, this is a great conversation. So I think there's a lot of good intentions by Operation Impact as far as the impact it has on the city itself. And I dived into it also, right? We all laughed about it, right? After that city council hearing, we all said the same thing. We spoke and said, wow, she really is the queen of rebrand. I always say Jessica Tisch is the queen of rebrand, right? Because when we heard her say cops were on foot for 18 months, we're like, oh, back to Impact, right? Because we all saw that cops would be doing the FTU training, which means they would have a field training officer, they would be in cars and learn all the facets of police work. Because Operation Impact is great impact for the city. It's not necessarily the best for the cops itself, because it lacks the ability to be multidimensional, I believe. But there is a lot of good that comes out of impact. You learn a lot of grit. You do learn self-awareness, situational awareness as a cop, and you learn the ability of survival, and you learn how to be gritty and you're on the streets, and you learn what the streets are, how to see them, and there's a lot of things that you don't learn as impact, how to handle domestic cases necessarily, or other facets of policing. But you do learn that I do an Operation Impact. I think it's good for a short-term basis, not 18 months, but I do think it has a good impact. Now, I dived into this also, and there was a criminologist. His name is John McDonald. John McDonald is a criminologist from the University of Pennsylvania, and he did some studies on. He was deeply intrigued by NYPD's impact, Operation Impact. So he did some studies from 2004 to 2012, I believe it was, and he believed that even though he wasn't really a supporter of it, his studies actually proved that it works, which is why I think that Jessica Tish is now going back to that it does have an impact, that it does ultimately, that Operation Impact reduces crime because it puts cops in locations of high crime areas. It makes them visible. And ultimately, along with that, and I don't know if they're doing it now, I'm sure they will be, is during Operation Impact, cops were very intrusive, which is why I also call it intrusive police work, not proactive. They were intrusive. They were walking their foot post. They were engaging people. They were stopping people. They were questioning them and possibly frisking if there was possible weapons. And so based on his study, John McDonald from the University of Pennsylvania, criminologist, his studies determined that Operation Impact does reduce crime, and it has a better impact than the apparatus that's in now. So is she the queen of rebrand? Absolutely. Absolutely. Give it new names, different smells. It's the same shit, different story. The reality is it worked. Is it necessarily the best thing for the cops? I think a short-term basis, maybe 3-4 months, it's good, but you shouldn't be there for 18 months because you need to learn all facets of police work.
Yeah, so I personally, I think impact gets a bad rap, like broken windows policing, like stop, question, and frisk. I think it has a really bad rap. I think it's the same rap that Marlon put on vehicle checkpoints as well. I think, the thing is we throw a lot of good tools out of the NYPD because weak leadership didn't implement them properly and utilize it properly. So obviously Operation Impact works, because if it didn't work, I don't even need the criminologist to tell me that, because if it didn't work, they wouldn't do what they do with Operation All Out, right? Where they take people from outside commands, and what do? They're like, oh, okay, we're going to take these 15, 16-year guys or 20-year guys, and now we're going to put shoes in foot posts and flood these precincts. Why are they doing that? Because it works, because it brings crime down. Is it the best formula to put young rookie cops out by themselves with kids with 6 more months on them, leading them? Absolutely not. I mean, I think we all agree on that. Is it good to have these kids flood high crime neighborhoods and learn policing and learn the arrest processing and learn how to answer 911 calls and learn how to summons people? Absolutely it is. And I think when you look at the people that came out of Operation Impact, they were the most proactive cops the NYPD has ever seen, and that led the NYPD and drove a major downturn in crime in New York City. From the time of the early 2000s until 2018, we credit broken windows, but you could credit those Operation Impact cops, because they were really the ones that changed the face of New York City and gave that omnipresence to the New York City Police Department. It was almost a rite of passage, right? So that's why, like, when you see guys like Tariq Shepard or Chief Edwards or any of these guys, and they have 0 arrests to their name, you're like, how is that possible? Like, what were you doing? What were you doing in Impact? How'd you come out with no arrests? Like, how'd that happen? How'd that happen? Did you not do Impact? Like, what was that about? And so I think, to me, like, yeah, would I have liked more exposure with older cops earlier on? Yeah, I would have. But by the time I was put into a patrol squad, I was pretty self-functioning police officer as far as arrest process, as far as how to handle myself on the street, as far as how to give people summonses safely, deal on jobs, do car stops, respond to 911 calls. Did I know everything? No, not even close. But I had a good basis, and I think Impact works, and I think it could have been improved on, just like doing stop, question, and frisk. You know, it's funny because I'm like flashing back to a conversation I had with Edwin Raymond about broken windows theory, and I think we did it on this show. I think you were on it too, Eric. And you know, basically, I was explaining to him, how broken windows should work, and he's like, "Well, I don't have a problem with that." But that's not how it was being implemented. And I'm like, I get it. I get that it was being implemented improperly. But that doesn't mean this is how it should have been implemented. And this is how it works. And this is how it should work. And he's like, well, I actually don't have a problem with that. So he technically didn't have a problem. And he might differ on this statement. But in my opinion, he actually doesn't have a problem with broken windows policing. He has a problem with how the NYPD utilized it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to push back on both of you guys on this one. Okay, because I think that I don't think Impact works, because I've seen enough lazy cops come out of Impact. Cops who do low-hanging fruit enforcement, get their numbers, and think they've done a great job in policing.
Wait, but time out. But time out. When you say that, you don't think it works in training cops, or you don't think it works in bringing crime down? Because it certainly brought crime down in every area that it was implemented.
Well, if you flood a zone, like
I mean, yeah, you displace it 100%. You displace it. I'm not saying that it's a long-term solution unless you're continuing to do it. But it certainly lowers crime in those zones that Jessica Tisch thinks she invented that word, which I don't know, because I was policing an impact zone in 2004, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Let's hear him out. I want to hear your point, Marlon. I want to hear the.
Yeah, well, my point is that it's not the impact that's working. It's when you flood a zone, if you put adequate manpower in any high crime area, you're going to have an impact on crime, right? That's what works. Impact does not work when you look at the zoom out and look at the bigger picture, though, impact does not work, because you created a generation of supervisors who think that policing is simply getting numbers in a specific area, and then you solve the problem. And that's one of the negative outcomes of impact. And I think you'll never really get rid of that numbers policing in this department until that generation has grown out and retired off the job. I think the benefits of impact are the foot posts and flooding a zone with more cops. And you can do that inside a precinct without necessarily having an impact zone. The problem with the impact zone is not only does it centralize the decision-making over those zones to 1PP, which is the outside command that doesn't know the inherent environment of specific neighborhoods. That decision should be on the commander to assign his rookies wherever he in areas that are hotspots in his command, and make determinations as to where they should be. And it should be done with field training, meaning the rookie cops get out of the academy and should be field trained but the precinct commander should have control over that, because if the rookies are being their assignments are being determined by 1PP, they're not going to get that training of veteran cops in the precincts. And that's why when they're finished with impact, a lot of them go to commands and they don't know anything. They don't know how to write a report. They don't know how to articulate a stop. And I've seen this. And now those cops who came out of my generation of impact, who didn't know how to articulate a stop, who couldn't even find a collar in a shirt factory, or they couldn't even find a collar if it landed on the hood of their cop car, are now supervisors. And that's a problem for the long-term health of the NYPD.
Marlon, I don't think we totally disagree. I just didn't expand on it. If you go back to what I said I think that impact was great in the sense that it actually reduced crime. I think it had a good impact for the city and the residents. And I said, but not necessarily the cops. And I think that, but there are some good things that the cops did learn. Situational awareness. They learned some grit. They learned survival. I think it does make the cops tougher and have a kind of like a tougher shell because you're out there. You have to learn survival immediately. And I said it should be a shorter stint, 3 to 4 months, not 18 months. So if I had my vision, now there's always a margin of error in policing. I don't think anything's perfect. But if I had my vision, it would be that you do impact for maybe 3-4 months where you're walking around, you learn that grit, survival, you learn some observational skills. It's a great impact for the city. It actually does reduce crime. You're flooding an area. And then you're put into an actual field training unit. So you get that little grit, you get that little exposure, and then you go to a field training unit. Because what I said was in impact, you don't learn all facets of policing. Now, there are some cops that really thrived in impact. And I think, John, we did well. For us, that was a good environment. We learned. We were mature, at least, I felt I was. I was in the Marine Corps. I just came out of combat. So I had a lot of experience. I was honor grad at Officer Candidate School. And I decided, I declined the commission and I came to the police department. So I already had those leadership qualities. And for me, I felt I thrived in impact. I was already able, I didn't really need someone to hold my hand. I just need to learn policing. So for some people, I think they do thrive on it if they're mature. But I think there are a lot of great things you learn in impact. But I think itself, the impact, the idea of impact, I do think it has a good result for the city. It does reduce crime. I think it helps you learn how to engage people on different levels. At least for me, like you become very intrusive. Just having conversations with people that maybe just be a conversation with someone that's lost, or maybe you learn how to ask questions to incriminate themselves to actually stop a crime. So you learn how to engage people on different levels. And for some of those cops, if you're saying they didn't, Marlon, I agree. There are some cops in impact because they weren't doing that type of work. So that I feel is more of a failure on the leadership. What was the leadership doing to make sure that they actually get that training involved in those aspects? And I do think the best thing would be a couple of months in impact, and then you go to a field training unit and refine those tools and get those missing links that you didn't get. But again, there's always a margin of error. So if I had to choose what we have now compared to Operation Impact, I would go with Operation Impact. Those are my thoughts. What do you think, John?
Yeah, no, I think I totally disagree with Marlon because I think it's the same argument that we had over the vehicle checkpoints. Like, yeah, it was used improperly. It's used often improperly to generate numbers. But if it's used what it's intended to be used for, if it's used as a training period and you actually have seasoned veterans doing that, that should actually be the FTU model. And that is actually training the mindset of how you're going to attack crime later on down your career as a supervisor, where crime pops up, how you would address it, and how to actually bring crime down. And like, yeah, there was a lot of bad things that happened in Impact, and there was a lot of weak leadership in the NYPD, and there was a lot of poor leadership, and it was very numbers driven. And that's where it went bad. But I think overall, when you just look at the decline in crime, everyone wants to paint like there was this crime, this miraculous decline in crime that just happened out of nowhere. And it didn't just happen out of nowhere. There was a lot of work. There was a lot of arrests. There was a lot of prosecutions that were made during that time. And there was a lot of great cops that came out of Impact. Now, look, I'm not saying that every Impact zone was run properly. I'm not. I know for the Impact zone that I was in, we just got lucky. We had a couple of crime guys that got jammed up, and they basically made them our trainers. And so we got some decent training in Impact. Now, I'm sure that wasn't the case throughout the entire department. And like I said, I don't think that I think it needed to be improved on, and I don't think what we actually went into was what it was intended to be. And it's the same thing with that car stop. When I'm like, when you're doing a vehicle checkpoint, you shouldn't be going out there to just get summonses. It shouldn't be numbers from numbers. It should be targeted police work. You're out there for a reason. Get what that reason is. And it's the same thing when we're talking about proactive police work. Like, you shouldn't be out there to get numbers in a zone. You shouldn't be out there. Oh, well, I pulled this lady over in the zone and she had a glass of wine with her friend, so I locked her up, so that deterred crime that day. Come on. So that's a joke, dude. Now you're out, you're in the zone, you pull a kid over smoking marijuana. He got his nice, he's got like 20 collars under it. He's got an open warrant. And I guess what? I searched him and then I found the gun in the car. That's police work. That's targeted enforcement. You know what I mean? Now take the other kid. He's coming through the Impact zone. He's in college. He's smoking a joint with his friends. Should you be locking that kid up? Like, he has no nice in on him. Should he be spending a night in jail? No, you didn't have no impact on crime that day. And so I think overall, I think the numbers don't lie. Was it used improperly? Yeah, it was. I said it. I'll always say it. I think the same thing with stop, question, and frisk. I think it was used improperly. But just because it was used improperly doesn't mean that it can't be improved on. And I'm not saying that Jessica Tisch is improving on it, because all of the same things that happened in the impact zone are happening today. So, and even worse, I'm hearing. So I'm just saying, I don't like throwing ideas out of the water just because the NYPD implemented them poorly.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I'm saying that impact doesn't work because eventually it devolves into numbers game, okay? Because we go back to old habits, okay? I think you should give, the precinct should be in charge of where they put their rookies and managing their crime hotspots, and should be held accountable. One of the problems, again, with impact, I find, is that who's accountable, okay? A lot of these COs have impact rookies in their command, and when I was an impact rookie, and they have no control over where those rookies go. It's like, who is actually in charge of these rookies? Who's in charge of who's the boss? If you put the rookies in the precincts and let the commanders decide, where to put these rookies, then the commander is in charge of those rookies, and he's accountable for their placement and crime in his command, which it should be. I'm not a fan of centralizing anything at the top. I think the power should go back to the precinct commanders. And one of the reasons why I think we have idiots who are commanding officers now is because so much power is centralized at 1PP, that 1PP has basically created a paint by numbers, structure for leadership. So where a commander just waits for emails and policy to come down from 1PP to make decisions, instead of being the guy in charge or the woman in charge, which they should be. If you had that, you'd have less idiots making it to that rank, because they wouldn't be able to cut the mustard, because you'd actually need a leader in that position rather than somebody who could just follow orders, right? So I think the rookie should go back to the precinct commanders, right? And keep in mind now, in 2014, Bratton himself said that impact isn't going anywhere, but what he wanted to do was have FTU first, and then those officers would be in foot posts, which is, I think, the right way to go about it. I think you shouldn't come out the academy and just be thrown on the street, because that training in the academy is inadequate. And like I said, I saw plenty of guys in my impact who were like, who didn't know what the hell they were doing. Okay. And you should be coming out the academy and getting supervision from the precincts and veteran experience, knowledge from experienced veterans in the precinct. And then you should get into the impact. Okay. I believe the foot posts are very important to precincts, and every precinct should have a foot post out. I think that is where we all can agree on, but I just don't think impact works.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So I have to push back on that part. I actually think that you should go to impact first, then the FTO program. And we're talking about the benefits of the cops, right? When we talk about the impact that it has on the city, I think Operation Impact works, and works in any facet. I agree with you. That part I agree with. I'm a firm believer in small unit leadership breakdown. And when it's centralized at the top, you don't have a small unit leadership breakdown, and we don't have critical thinkers, and we don't have leaders anymore. We just have people waiting for orders. And those captains, those commanders, they became those same people. Just like cops who are waiting for orders, they become same thing. Their email or whatever the response is, how the information is disseminated, they're just waiting for information. They're not really leading. They're not become critical thinkers. They're waiting for the centralized top. So that breakdown, the small unit leadership, it's definitely a failure. But I'm a firm believer. I think that you should do impact before the FTU program. I think it's kind of hard. You put a brand new rookie in a car with a senior officer. It's kind of comfortable. Your ass is already in a seat. And then after having that being comfortable, you're going to then put them on a foot post. I think they need to, it's kind of hard to transition after you've been comfortable sitting in a car and now you're going to put that cop on a foot post. They already spent 6 months in the academy. They're kind of gritty now. Put them on foot right away. Put them on foot so that when they eventually get to a car and they start to get that type of training, they'll appreciate it more, and they'll be more incentivized to actually learn what it is to be in that car and patrol with a senior cop. And I think as a brand new cop, getting your feet into the fire, I think you do learn those key elements that you don't necessarily learn if you're pampered right away, which is survival, that situational awareness, because you have to, right? It's it's like Darwin's theory, right? Survival of the fittest. You have to learn how to survive. You have to learn to be out there in the elements. You learn those observational skills. You're not relying on someone else to make those observations for you, as when you're in a car with someone who's senior. You have to learn them yourself. You have to learn those observational skills. And so that's my belief. I'm not saying you're wrong, Marlon, or I'm right or wrong, but my opinion, my perspective, that's how I would do it. And some people may agree or disagree, but I think the benefit to the cop, there's a lot of great things in impact you learn. I do blame the NYPD, and that's the leadership. By pushing numbers, it gets distorted. But there's always a margin of error. And numbers and quota, and we can have leaders deny it. They're damn right there's a quota. And there shouldn't be. But there's a quota because there's failed leadership. If we had good leaders who are incentivizing their cops and they're really leading their cops, we wouldn't need a quota. But we need a quota because there's failure on leadership. And so there is a quota. If anybody says there's not a quota, it's a damn lie. You call it personal growth, put all these fancy names on it. But my opinion, I say Operation Impact, then the FTU program. Listen, we're getting close. 2 hours and 55 minutes. I'm sure, John, you want to give your thoughts on that, and then we should get to the coffee and donuts.
Yeah, I got nothing else. Like I said, I think that it could be a good thing if there was proper training and it was staffed properly, and the mission was to actually deter crime and train young officers. When you have a central focus on manipulating crime statistics, you lose it. I don't care what it is. If it's impact, if it's patrol, if it's anti-crime, it's detective work, and that's just a problem, and that all stems from what's coming down on top. You know what I mean? And so, I don't think we've ever really moved away from any of this shit. They just changed the names of all of it. So Molly, got anything else before we hit the coffee and donuts? We only got about 5 minutes left, not even.
Yeah. I'm just gonna close it out. But what was I gonna say?
Don't bring anything up.
No. Well, I'm not gonna show the video. I had a video ready to show you that last year Tish mentioned that these position zones were going to be staffed by basically veteran cops with overtime, and now this year she's telling you it's rookies. So my point in that is that it's because we go back to old habits when money gets tight, and this is why it's never going to work. Okay, the only way to prevent us from going back to old habits is to put the power back into the commands and give the commanders control over their own rookies. And also, when you start out in impact, you develop poor habits that transition with you as you get into the RMP and you become a boss. And that's what my whole point.
Yeah, but again, it's just because it was poor training, dude. You shouldn't have guys with 6 months on training cops that just came out of the academy. I mean, it just doesn't work. They don't know anything either. It's the blind leading the blind,
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think it could be, if it was properly done, I think it could be a great thing. I think you should go from the academy, go on foot, get a little grit. If we had senior guys out there teaching the job in that, for Operation Impact, and then you go to the car, I think that's the best transition. I think the ideology behind it's good. With good training, I think it could be effective. You're right. They get bad habits, Marlon, because they have bad training.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll come back. How it's implemented versus what it is should be whatever. It's told to you so back when says, John, those are the same lawyers that denied the RAs. Oh, the lawyers out in the street? Absolutely. Yeah, cowards. Yeah. Those lawyers are horrible. Like I said, if they were good lawyers, they wouldn't be working for the New York City Police Department.
I told you so back when. Thanks for being back here. We haven't seen you in a while. Thank you.
Yeah. And that goes for all you attorneys that are cops too. I don't care that you have. I'm actually an attorney. It's like, all right, well, good. You should have been doing that then. The Finest 25 says, present for duty. Good morning, all here. Stay safe. Safe week for all. All right, people. That's it for today. We don't have a lot of super chats. We appreciate everybody. Listen, wherever
John, there's one from Modern Samurai.
Make sure you like, subscribe to the channel. wherever you're watching or listening to it. If you're on the audio podcast, make sure that you give us a 5-star review and leave a comment. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell. Modern Samurai says, great show today. Really address great subjects. Foot posts are the way that every officer should start. You learn faster, understand the community, etc. Impact was a bad idea, in my opinion. Like, subscribe, join the chat. 255 plus. That's it, people. So yeah, we got the 10-4 Tavern tomorrow. I'm going to produce. It's going to be Pete Faselli. I think Tom's out. He's traveling. I forget who Pete's going to have on, but I'll be in the background producing that show. Wednesdays, Executive Perspective. Ron and Rob are going to be on. And obviously myself will be back on Wednesday as well. Finest Unfiltered. So yeah, what do you guys got before we wrap it up?
Well, go ahead, bro.
I got nothing. Yeah, I thought a lot of information today, guys. So have a great day, and stay safe and stay alert if you're out there in patrol.
One thing we don't do on the show is lie, but Marlon just lied. He said he's got nothing. He's got a whole tank right now of information he wants to put out, but we're going to have to do that on another show. So I just want to say, listen, everybody, thank you so much. We're about 15 seconds away of hitting 3 hours. Like, share, and subscribe. We hit 255,000. That is because of your engagement. We appreciate our friends and listeners. Your engagement is on fire. That's what helped us all grow. We're building together. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marlon. Thank you, John. Thank you to the Finest Unfiltered family. Thank you to our friends, listeners, haters. We are growing together, and we're growing, and that it's about having a real conversation. That's what we had here today. That's what we should all have. This is a healthy conversation. Look, myself, Marlon, and John, there's a lot of conversations we have where we agree, disagree. Some aspects we agree and disagree, and there's a lot of beauty that comes out of disagreeing, and it's what we learn from each other. And we shouldn't be upset by one another and say, "Oh, you're wrong," right? Like I said to Marlon, I don't think you're wrong. That's his perspective. And maybe it's good. And I don't think I'm wrong either. They both can work. It's just how they implement it. And I think with good leadership, my point is, with good leadership, I think anything could work, whether what order it is in life and on anything. I think it really comes down to leadership. If we have the right leadership, you get the right training, and I think either one could ultimately work. There's different perspectives on what's advantageous or what's disadvantageous, and we can learn from it. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone here feels the same thing. When you're having a conversation with someone and you're in disagreement, don't get mad that they have different thoughts than you. Actually appreciate it. That's what makes the world beautiful. So thank you, everyone.
That's it. All right. And shout out to Nolan and Pat Donahue for their donations to the channel. Appreciate you guys. All right, everybody. Finest Unfiltered. We'll be back at you. Check us out Tuesday, 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?